Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Noah Bracker was in the Special Forces. He was sent to all sorts of places, and even to hot spots. His friends died before his eyes. In their place came other people, and they did their duty, realizing that this is their job. But, as they say, everything comes to an end, and Noah's service ended. It happened after one mission, where he was badly wounded. He already then realized that after such a wound, he belonged only in the civilian life. After leaving the hospital, Noah returned to his town. He went into a familiar yard, where he ran as a boy and breathed in the familiar air. Almost nothing had changed, only his mom was gone. She died 6 months ago when he was in the hospital. Her heart had failed, though she had called him often then and told him that she could no longer live without her beloved Vanishka, her husband, and Noah's father. His death, she never forgot. She was probably just living out of habit by now, and he could see that she didn't want to do that. He walked into the apartment, and his heart ached. Nothing had changed. Mother didn't want to change anything here, and he wouldn't. What was the point of the memories? All he had left in his pocket now. Clutching his cell phone, he took it out and smiled. "Hey bro, from what I understand, you should be in town by now. What are we meeting tonight? Hey Liam, how good to hear from you. Come on, I'm not feeling so good. Oh come on, let's go to your parents' gravesite, and then we'll remember them at some restaurant. By the way, I have something serious to talk to you about. It's about your job. Okay, it's not a phone call. So get cleaned up, and I'll be there in half an hour." Noah took a shower, changed his clothes, and waited for his childhood friend. Liam was the only one who called him lately. He was the only one who talked to him. He had no other close friends. Well, great. Liam hugged Noah and patted him on the shoulder. "You don't know how glad I am that you're finally back. I haven't realized it yet, whether I'm glad or not. Just now I was walking around the apartment, and I felt so bad. I wanted to see my mother so badly. I thought I'd make it, and then I got shot. Thank you for burying her. I'm so grateful." "Don't say that. Your mother was my own. I did the best I could. Let's go. You'll relax a little, and then you'll get used to it. We'll talk about the job. You just want to do something." They sat in the restaurant, drinking and eating, and Noah could feel the tension letting go. Either he was relaxing a little, or it was the alcohol. "You're gonna join my department. You're gonna be an operative. I need guys like you in my department. I think you'll do a great job. Remember when we wanted to be police officers together? Only you went to war, and I'm gonna be investigating cases. Yeah, I'm in gangs. It's basically the same war, just a little different." "Exactly. So I think you're gonna be like a fish out of water." "All right, I'm in. Tell me, what do you think about when you're starting a family?" "I haven't found the one person I want to marry yet. You know, nowadays women need a lot of money, and we don't get much. And then you're always working day and night. And what woman would like that? So I'm in no hurry. I still want to get married once and for all. Do you have anyone in mind?" "No one. There's no truth in the hospital. There was a nurse I liked, but she was married. I didn't get involved, although I think she didn't mind." They laughed and poured into empty glasses again. Noah returned home late at night. He did not let the word go, and they went to bed as in childhood. Who's going where? Liam used to stay at his house a lot. In the morning they had coffee, washed up, and went to work. "So you go to your boss first. Rick, is he expecting you? And then you come to my department. I'll show you around. It's a lot of work. We got a gang going on. They're stealing cars, changing everything so they can't get caught, and selling them. They're getting real good at it. They'd got some kind of underground syndicate, and no leads. I'll let you read it when we get there. Maybe you'll notice something. My bosses are asking me, and we can't do anything. As soon as there's a clue, we go to the place we were told, and there's nothing there. Explain to me how they can turn things around so fast. Don't you think there's a mole in your department? Apparently, he's been bribed by the gangsters, so he's giving them all the information. Haven't you thought about that? Have you? Yeah, my operatives are the best, and they'll never do it. You're wrong. We were just talking yesterday about how you make very little money, and if someone has a beautiful girl, he's working hard for her. Believe me, right now he's not thinking about anything but her, and he thinks he's doing nothing wrong. You're gonna help me find this mole, if there is one in my department. After Noah had been to his superiors, Liam sat him down in his office and gave him some folders with photos. Look, here's who we're looking for. Here are the most dangerous, and here are the ones in the pipeline. Memorize them. Can you meet them on the street like this? How many cases like this have we had? They start to think they're unpunished and start showing up in restaurants and clubs. And our informants leak them to us. And another thing, I've been going through my staff files, and I've got some ideas. Let's see you later. Look, I'm gonna take care of some business. Then we'll go to the cafeteria for lunch and we'll talk. Noah studied the photos for an hour until finally Liam came into the office and said that he had enough for today. And now they're going to lunch. Listen, I've got two candidates. This is Sam and Jacob. Both young, both single. Jacob's been kind of mysterious lately. Guys make fun of him, joke about him. I never noticed. Do you think they could? You know Liam, I think it could be anybody. Think about it. But why young? What if one of your cops has a sick mom or a wife? Maybe they need money urgently. You're not considering that. You have no idea. I mean these guys. You're saying it's hard for me. I can't even imagine the rest of them. Well, wait, maybe they're not from your department at all. Just pay attention right now. I know it's hard in your line of work. It's hard not to trust, but you're gonna have to take a risk here. You know, right now he's helping these thugs. And then what? Yeah, I get it. That's the thing. We have a constant battle with these werewolves. They just don't seem to be getting any smaller. I never thought they'd show up in my department. Think about it. How is that possible? I mean, all the guys I've worked with have been with me for years. I can't believe they'd do something like this. Come on, don't read it. Maybe really the people you're looking for have things so set up that they sometimes just feel like it's time for them to change their spots. Maybe there is no mole. Again, I'm telling you, we'll find out. After lunch, they went on another call. It's nothing serious, but Noah got to work with Jacob. He saw that the guy knows what he's doing. He didn't talk much, but he got it right. That's the kind of guy he liked. Now he understood Liam well enough to see how hard it was to have a traitor in a job like this. I've heard a little about you from Liam. They say you're an expert in the military. Why did you leave? Wounded, badly wounded. So I couldn't serve anymore. But I like it here. So I think we can work together. Do you have a family? No, not yet. I realize that it's time to get married, but I haven't found the one and only woman with whom I'd like to tie my life. Are you married? No, not yet. I'm still looking. I met a girl here though. I like her, but she's probably not right for me. She's used to a life of luxury, and I can't give it to her, so I guess I'm screwed. What about the saying? There's no such thing as a happily ever after. That's just a saying. It's really not that simple, but I'm not giving up hope. After all, I'm an operative, and I think I can do it. Noah didn't jump to conclusions yet. He saw that Jacob was absolutely calm, not nervous, although people are different and behave differently. What about the theft? Did you find out anything? As usual, no one saw or heard anything, not even the old ladies at the door. Thieves have learned to steal without being seen. They pick a special time, knowing people are at work, and the grandmothers are probably at the clinic or making lunch for their grandchildren. You're right. It's probably just another cold case, but she's the guy for tonight. What do you think? What do you think of him? It's too early to tell. The guy's smart. He knows his business. That's all I'm gonna tell you for now. All right, Noah. But I'm glad to have you by my side. You're the one I can trust. The next day, after a small meeting in Liam's office, Noah stayed behind because there was nothing for him to do. They sat in silence, thinking about their own things. I'm called to the prosecutor's office again today. I'm fed up with these thefts. It's a real nuisance. So I'm going to get my ass handed to me today. But I guess I'm getting used to it. Yeah, come on. I think it's gonna be okay. They know it's not that simple. They don't. They'd like to get this case solved as soon as possible. How are we supposed to do that? Nobody cares. All right, let me look at the case. Maybe there's something I can help you with. Okay. I'm just reading. But I gotta go. Can you stay in my office? Here's your key. But don't leave your office open. There wasn't a lot of information on the thefts. Noah was even a little disappointed, but he was interested in the fact that Mason's name was mentioned a lot. And if his memory served with this guy, he was familiar with him. Mason had served with him, then was also discharged due to injury. That was 5 years ago, and he could very well be wrong. Well, it was worth a visit to his battle buddy to check something out. He closed the office and drove to the address mentioned in the Mason file. Wasn't home, but he got his wife's phone number, introducing himself as a battle buddy and just wanting to see a coworker. The wife likely didn't suspect a thing and immediately gave the phone number. Coming out of the entrance, Noah immediately dialed the number. Hello, he heard a familiar voice, so he was not mistaken after all. It was him. But hello, Rock. How you doing? You're Bracker. Are you here for a visit or are you here for good? I haven't heard from you in a while. I have other more peaceful things to do. Well, let's meet and I'll tell you all about our affairs and listen to yours. How about it? I'd love to. Where and when? Let's do it now. I don't care where. I don't care. They arranged a meeting, and Noah went home to change. He didn't want to be in a restaurant in jeans and a t-shirt. He saw him right away. Mason hadn't changed much, but he put on a little weight. He was still in shape. But hey, Bracker, how many years? How many winters? 5 years. I see you're doing pretty well. What do you do? You know, Noah, let's just talk to you like good buddies. I don't want you interrogating me. I already guessed you're working with your old buddy Liam. I'm right. Where'd you get that information? Yeah, I got people everywhere, and in your department too. I didn't expect that from you, to be honest. Look, I'm not gonna interrogate you here, but I gotta be honest. I'd like to ask you a couple questions. I know it's useless to ask you what you do. I don't have to tell you. You know me. If I want to know, I'll find out. But I'd like to know more about the informants on the case. Are you serious? Not a friend. That's not gonna work. You owe me? I forgot. Remember that time I pulled you out of the fire wounded? You told me you owed me one. Well, I would never ask you for anything. But here's a situation where you're gonna repay me by Salieri's informant. Sorry, well, I already know there's a mole in the department. You haven't changed, have you? Still as serious as ever. All right, let's have a drink. We'll talk. By the way, how did you get my phone number? Don't worry. After we talk, I'll delete it. Your wife gave it to me when I told her I was your battle buddy. Okay, I believe you. I just can't stand cops. You know, it's my business. You're not them yet. You're new, so I still believe you. I heard your mom died. My condolences. Let's drink to your parents. They talked for a long time. Mason told, though not in detail, what had happened to him when he came home from the wound, then told how he had met his wife and how he lived now, again skirting the subject of his activities. Noah did not insist. He realized that Mason would never tell him anything. They were on opposite sides of the barricade now. Well, I'll tell you about your snitch. He's in your department. By the way, he's the one who didn't tell me you were there. I knew right away who he was talking about. And when you called me today, everything fell into place. Don't be mad at me, Bracker. Everyone survives. The best they can. We all have our friends. I had mine. and you had yours. I get it. So you're gonna give me a name." Mason was silent for a moment, as if weighing whether or not he should do it. Then he waved his hand and said the name. Noah sat in Liam's office and watched him pacing back and forth nervously. But who would have thought it? Noah. He and I had been working together for a long time. I was sure it was one of the younger ones. How did he even agree to this? As far as I know, he's got nobody sick. Everybody's alive and well. He fell for the money. Not exactly. He's got a very good story involving a little girl. But I think you know what I'm talking about. That's what they say. Gray hairs, black hairs. How's that? But that's how they got him. Then they offered him to work for them and threatened that if he didn't accept, they would find out about it here. In the family, of course. You can imagine how they cornered him. So he said yes. Thank you. I think we can take this gang down now. I wouldn't be so sure. Mason's gonna make sure we don't find him. I know him well. Besides, I understand you didn't have any charges against him at the time. Of course there were. They're all front men. Nobody knows anything. No loose ends. It's clever. It's impossible to get to the bottom of. Well, thank you again. Now I'm gonna go talk to this mole of ours. Look him in the eye. Noah was swamped with work. Sometimes he didn't even have enough time to sleep even an hour, but he was used to such a regime. So he managed without difficulty. Even his words always surprised him, seeing him so awake. So there's nothing planned for Sunday. You and I have been invited to a birthday party. Remember my sister Miranda? She was a real nuisance back then, and my parents left her to me to watch her, and she followed us around. Anyway, it's her birthday. And you and I are invited. Miranda, of course I remember her. Married with 2 kids. Not like you and me walking around still single. I'll be honest. Her friends will be. So brace yourself. She told me they have some new coworker at work, so she's coming over to set up a meet and greet. Maybe my little sister will marry us. Oh, come on. Don't be a grump. How do you know? Maybe it really is our destiny with you. I, for one, want a family. I want kids. I get bored at home alone. Sometimes I just want to be a wolf. Imagine how you come home from work and there's a hot dinner waiting for you, with your family's eyes on the table and your kids by your side. You can't imagine how much I want kids. Yeah, Noah, I didn't realize you could be so romantic. It's settled then. We're going to my sister's for her birthday. Because, to be honest, I was wondering what I could think of to avoid going. Noah didn't understand why, but he wanted to relax a little, go to a party, meet a beautiful woman, dance with her. There was always one job. First the service, and now the police service. There was never enough time for everything else. Now such an opportunity had come up, and he decided not to turn it down. They arrived at Miranda's together. Liam's sister was unrecognizable, and from that skinny girl with 2 pigtails, a young, beautiful woman looked at him, in whom he hardly recognized his friend's sister. Noah, hi. I'm so glad you came along with your brother. To be honest, I was really afraid you wouldn't come. I've invited my brother so many times, and he always has some excuse, like he's got a ton of work to do or something. Well, why are you frozen at the threshold? Come into the room. Everything is ready, just waiting for you. The table was really full. They presented the gifts and sat down on the seats Miranda had shown them. Noah immediately saw a beautiful girl who was standing by the window. She looked at them with interest as Miranda began to introduce them all to each other. He remembered her name, Lisa. He himself didn't understand why or how he liked her so much. He'd had women, but at that moment he hadn't thought about family, relationships. Work didn't allow it. Now he wanted it for himself, to have a loving man around, to come home, and know that he would be waiting for him. Not a ringing silence, but a woman he loved who would meet him at the doorstep with a kiss. Noah also noticed that he was not the only one who liked Lisa. His friend Liam was looking at her with the same interest. But that's okay, they'll figure it out later. Let's see how she behaves first. The birthday party was a success. Noah hadn't had a vacation like this in a long time. Surrounded by ordinary people who knew nothing about the fighting, about blood, about casualties. Besides, he saw that Lisa favored him more than his friend, and he liked that very much. When the guests were leaving, Noah volunteered to escort Lisa out. She agreed. Liam took him aside and said, "I see you liked her. I'm very happy for you. I think you can manage on your own. I'll stay here tonight." It's been a long time since I've been to my sister's. They'd walked slowly along the sidewalk, and Lisa talked about her life, about graduating from high school, then going to college, studying. And now, finally, she had a normal job. She works in the architectural department, doing what she loves. Miranda and I met right away. She helped me to fit in. Although, to be honest, this is my third job. I quit my first job because the pay was so low. They used me as an errand girl, loaded me with work, and paid me pennies. I did not like it. I also quit my second job on my own. There my boss behaved inadequately, began to pester. And when I refused him, he began to insult me, saying that I am not a schoolgirl, but like a girl. But I left. But I was lucky to have a great job, and Miranda is my friend. How long have you known her? Since I was a kid. Her brother is a close friend of mine. We've been together since we were kids. When Miranda was very young, her parents often left her in the care of her older brother, so we had to take care of her. I remember now. It was silly, of course, but we were so angry. But we wanted to play war games, and there was a girl who was always in the way. Lisa, how are things in your personal life? Nothing. I had a boyfriend, then we broke up. Turns out he cheated on me with another woman a long time ago. She was smarter than I was. She called me herself and explained everything. And I didn't reprimand him. I just told him to go away. That's all. And you? Well, I mean, wife, kids. I've never been married. And I don't have any kids either. To be honest, I haven't had time to think about it. Hard work, which I liked very much. Then I was wounded. And now police work. Here we are, Lisa said, stopping at the entrance. Actually, I don't live far from Miranda. We get to work together. Noah realized that a girl like Lisa should not expect an invitation for a cup of coffee on the first day of their acquaintance. But he didn't want to insist, so as not to scare her with his eagerness. And he had to take her phone number because he wanted to see her again. Lisa, give me your phone number if you don't mind. I'd like to take you out. Lisa smiled and dictated the number he had written down. They said good night to each other, and he went home. It was a long way home, and it was time to get a hitchhiker, but he decided to walk a little to get the alcoholic vapors out of his head and to think a little. He was thinking about Lisa, of course. They must be about 10 years apart, no more, but that's okay. He's still a man, and she's not a girl, probably wants a family and kids by now too. It's easier for a man in that sense. If he's ready, he can make a child at any age. But with women, it's the other way around. When the time comes, she can no longer give birth. Lisa liked it a lot, and he didn't like it the way he usually does, just to meet for once. But the rare 2 times, there was something more serious. He wanted to see her all the time, but it was too soon to think about that. We need to get to know each other. And then we'll see. The next day, Noah was in Liam's office at 8 o'clock sharp and watched his agony with compassion. As he realized, his friend had not stopped yesterday, but had probably been drinking more. And now it was pitiful to look at him. He was in great pain, and his complexion was closer to green than normal. Why did you drink more last night? I knew it would be bad in the morning. Did you feel bad? No, nodded you. I know your heart's in the right place. I was hoping Lisa would choose me over you. I'm upset. Well, don't worry about it. I was just a little upset last night. Miranda really promised me yesterday that she would marry me. I believe it. Now let's talk about work. You've seen today's reports. Well, Go to the address and leave. Take one of the guys to help you. You come back and report to me later. Noah didn't like his friend's word to report, but he did not say anything, although he realized that he still holds a grudge against him for Lisa. But it would pass. I guess the wine vapors haven't left his head yet. That's why he's angry. He was working with Jacob again. He didn't know why, but he was comfortable with him. He answered his questions calmly. If he didn't understand something, and it was different where he was stationed, it's different here. So he asked him how to act in this or that case. He liked that, even explaining, he did it intelligently, without any skeptical remarks or surprise. Everything was right. And so it was easy and comfortable for the two of them to work together. True, he exaggerated a little about the ease and comfort. The work of a policeman, of course, does not consist in that. They arrived from their assignment in the evening. Jacob offered to have coffee, and Noah agreed. They sat in the office and talked about how they would act tomorrow. When the door opened and Liam came in. I don't get it. Why are you sitting here? I'm waiting there with a report, and he's here singing coffee. Come here. Noah silently put down his glass and got up from the table. Right now, he wanted to grab his friend by the chest and give him a good shake. But he knew how to keep himself in control and didn't do it in front of strangers. Liam immediately realized that he had said too much. He quickly left the office. Noah followed him. He raised his voice at me once more. You'll see what happens. I'm not a puppy to be trained. I hope you understand me. I just got here 5 minutes ago. We thought we'd take a little break to coordinate a plan of action. Then I'd come to you and report back. Liam burst out noisily. Well, then sat back in his chair and looked at his friend calmly. I'm sorry, it's just that the bosses gave me a slap on the wrist again. So I snapped. Well, it won't happen again. Let's just forget it. I'm kind of freaking out about it myself, to be honest. I'm sorry. All right, let's forget it. Noah sat down opposite Liam and told him how they had spent the day and what they had done. He listened without interrupting, only nodding his head occasionally. Then, when Noah finally finished, he decided to make a correction. Okay, I got it. Then check their alibis tomorrow and get the phone records. They sense something's wrong. It's probably either the wife or the mistress. I don't think his partner was set up like that. Besides, from what I understand, he and his wife are talking about divorce. Then she'd be left with nothing. It's a trivial story. It always is. We need a motive. Here's a lead. We'll take it from there, but we'll see. Noah wanted to say he didn't believe his wife was guilty because he saw how upset she was. No matter how good an actress she was, it was impossible. Or Noah was a bad judge of character at home. When he relaxed on the couch and remembered that he'd been trying to call Lisa all day, but he hadn't been able to. He'd been busy. Now, looking at the time, he thought it was probably too late, but he decided to call. Hello. Lisa, hello. I'm sorry to call you so late. I just didn't have time to call earlier. Are you still awake? No, I'm glad you called me. I don't go to bed before 12 o'clock, so don't worry. How are you doing? How's work? You sound really tired. A little. I wanted to invite you to a restaurant, but I'm afraid I'll be busy soon. Let's schedule it for this weekend. Is that okay with you? No, Noah. I don't mind. They talked for a while, and then they said good night and passed out. Noah, it felt so good that he couldn't understand his state of mind. Lisa's voice mesmerized him, and he was very happy when she agreed to meet him. He felt like a teenager when the girl he liked allowed him to kiss her. His heart had beaten the same way then. He smiled, then, remembering how the day had gone, frowned again. Now he knew for sure that his friend had liked Lisa too, and he couldn't get over it. That she had chosen Noah over him was something they had already had once in high school. They liked the same girl they wanted to date. The girl chose Noah, and Liam took offense. But then they talked and decided that if they wanted to stay friends, they should respect each other and be happy if a friend was happy. Apparently, she, Liam, has been reeling again. But it will pass. He will calm down and everything will be as before. And so it was the next day. Liam behaved as usual, as if they had no conflict yesterday. And Noah understood his friend. He didn't hold a grudge. Couldn't it have flown by? At the end of the day, Noah decided to visit Liam, to tell him he was on his way home, and to ask if he needed a ride. He remembered that he had recently complained that his car had broken down and was in the shop. "Noah, let's go fishing. We'll pack up today and leave early tomorrow and have a good night's rest. I don't want to go home alone this weekend. My sister wants me to go to the cottage, but I don't want to go with them. I realize they have their own family. I don't belong there. I can't. I've got a meeting scheduled, so I can't not go. It's a work thing." Noah didn't want to upset Liam anymore. I remember he'd just recently gotten over the fact that Lisa didn't choose him. It's a work thing with the CI. Lying to a friend was unpleasant, but realizing he'd be totally upset when he found out he was going on a date, and you can't cancel. No, he only has time tomorrow. Then he's leaving. Then I guess I'll go to the cottage. I can't stay home alone. Why don't we go to my place? We'll have a drink. You okay? Yeah, I was planning to get some sleep, so I'll go home and I'll be happy to drive you. By the way, Liam, don't you think you've been drinking a lot lately? Yeah, it's just tiredness. Don't mind me. Let's at least go home. You're ditching me. My car won't be ready until next week, so I have to drive. How's that working out for you? The next day, Noah got up very late. The first thing he wanted to do was get some sleep. Then, when he finally got up and had some coffee, he decided to call Lisa to see if her plans had changed. She answered right away as if she had been expecting his call. His heart gave a little twinge when he thought she would cancel and say that she had some business to attend to and that they wouldn't be able to meet. He breathed a sigh of relief when he realized that he wasn't. She said it was all right and that it would be fine if he picked her up. It's just that, Noah, I'm afraid to go out in the evenings for some reason. Especially in a cab. You know what time it is. So I'd be glad if you pick me up yourself. After the conversation, he went about his usual household chores, although in fact, there was nothing to do. He was always in order. He'd gotten used to it over the years. Discipline was the first thing a soldier needed. Time stretched like rubber. And he waited for the evening. The restaurant was quiet. He had taken Lisa to the place where he and his friend had recently gone. He liked it very much and decided to invite her there. She was looking around with interest, and he only had eyes for her. She was wearing a beautiful black dress, and her hair was arranged in a beautiful style. She looked even more beautiful to him like that. "Lisa, where are your parents?" asked Noah to start the conversation. "They live in my village. When I went to college, I didn't see them much. Now I visit them. But to be honest, I have a strained relationship with them. They can't forgive me for trading the village for the city. Now they're nursing my brother's grandchildren, and they're happy. I call them sometimes to tell them I'm doing well. That's all. Where are your parents? My mom died over 6 months ago, and my dad died a long time ago. My mom told me right away that she couldn't stay in this world for long without her beloved husband, but she still tried to live for me. It's a terrible thing to lose a parent. But let's not talk about sad things. Tell me about your job. Do you like it? No, not about work. Let's talk about something else. Besides, I suggest we have a drink." And Lisa said yes. The evening was delightful. Lisa talked a little about her childhood, how she and her friends dreamed of meeting a prince, of course, on a white horse, and how happy they would be. It's true that I haven't been happy yet, although all my friends have been married for a long time. I'm the only one who's preoccupied with my career. I guess your time hasn't come yet, but neither has mine. I didn't really have time for that. It was work. And now, I'd like to have a family and children myself. Lisa blushed. Noah was very good with her and even flashed the thought of inviting her to my house, to continue the banquet, so to speak. But then he decided not to hurry, so as not to scare Lisa away. Although they are already adults, understand perfectly well that a man and a woman can want each other. Besides, if they could see that they liked each other, Noah could see that she liked him. Finally, they began to pack up. They paid their money. Noah put her in the car and drove her home. He didn't want to leave her, but he couldn't insist on continuing. Lisa must have decided to take the initiative herself, because when they reached her house, she offered to have tea with her. "It's just that I have very good Indian tea. Come on, I'll buy you some." Noah went. He didn't hesitate for a minute. He followed Lisa right away. They woke up together. Noah hugged Lisa and asked if she would treat him to some delicious Indian tea today, which they hadn't gotten to yesterday. She laughed and smacked the mule on his cheek. Noah felt like an electric shock, and they got things going again. They ended up spending the whole day in bed, only it was late in the evening. Noah started to get ready to go home. "I'm sorry, love, but I've got to go to work tomorrow, so I need to get some sleep. If I stay here, I know you and I won't be able to make it." Lisa laughed, agreeing with Noah. Besides, he wasn't the only one who had to go to work. Noah arrived at the department in a good mood. He'd had a great weekend. Besides, they had agreed to call each other in the evening. Now he was ready to move mountains. "I can see you had a great vacation. So how was the meeting with the informant?" At first, Noah didn't even know what Liam was talking about. But then he remembered and smiled cheerfully and said it was excellent. "And how was your time?" "Not so good. I thought I'd go to the country with my sister. Didn't work out. Their kid got sick, so they didn't go anywhere by themselves. I sat alone, wheezing, just a little bit. So, despite my judgmental attitude, I still thought you'd come to see me on Sunday. I was expecting you. But I guess you were busy on Sunday too. Tell me about it." "I met a girl." Noah nodded. "Actually, they're adults now. And they're friends. It wouldn't be nice to keep things from a friend. Yes, I've been seeing Lisa, and I know it's not pleasant for you. But I don't see the point in hiding it from you. I figured it out myself, so I shouldn't have lied about the informant. Okay, it's your own fault. I acted like an asshole. You know, when I got so angry, I wondered what they see in you, and she ignores me. I think I'm a success with women when you're not around. So get married already, and then it'll be my turn." Noah was glad his friend didn't hold a grudge. Besides, it was like a stone had been lifted from his soul. He never liked to lie. The week at Noah's place had flown by. Work during the day and meeting Lisa in the evening. He was falling in love with her more and more. He also saw that she liked him too, and that she was having a good time with him. So they met for a month. Noah saw that it was time to talk to Lisa. "Really? Lisa, come to my place. I understand you're renting an apartment. Let's just live together. Besides, maybe I'm in a hurry, but I'd like us to get married. You see, I'm not a boy anymore, and I don't have time to wait much longer. So I've decided to take the bull by the horns right away." I mean, I would have laughed, Lisa, and then I added, "I'm not a girl anymore. So I'll tell you right away, I agree. Then determine the time when you can get off work, and we'll go with you. We'll apply. There's nothing to delay. And now we'll go to your place and pack your things. I don't want to drag this out either. Don't look at me. I'll help you. The two of us will get things done a lot faster." We decided not to have a wedding, just a night out with friends. Liam was as happy as a boy for his friend, though Noah saw sadness in his eyes. "Don't be sad. We appreciate you. Do you hear me, Miranda? Noah, I'm begging you. Please help me. I finally got you settled in. But I can't get my brother back. This isn't gonna work. Guys, let's find a match for my brother at last. Otherwise he'll remain a bachelor for the rest of his life." The guests murmured, saying that it would be nice, and that soon Liam would be married too, and with a lot of children everyone was having fun. And soon Noah noticed that his friend was laughing more, and the sadness in his eyes was finally gone. After the party, the newlyweds went to Noah's house. Lisa had already gotten used to it, because she had been living there for almost 2 months. She immediately took off her high-heeled shoes and complained that they had been invented by a sadist, so that life would not seem like honey to any woman. Then she changed her clothes and went into the kitchen to make tea. Noah didn't mind it himself. A little of it to drink, because there was a noise in my throat, and they were tired today. You know, your friend was really sad tonight. Only at the end of the night he was having a little fun. I felt sorry for him, to be honest. Liam's a good guy. He just doesn't have much luck with the ladies. But I think he'll be fine. I heard his sister today telling everyone he should get married. And if she's saying that, he's definitely married. You'll see. Miranda's a fine girl and she loves her brother dearly. I think she'll find him a girl soon. Of course she will. I recognize her too. She's the most important person in the office. She's also my friend. So I know what you're talking about. We should invite him over more often. Besides, you probably have unmarried friends besides Miranda. I just figured his sister's a busy person. She's got a family, kids, and we don't have the same problems she does. Well, I'll see who I can set him up with. Things were a mess at work. The bosses came in for an inspection, and everyone was busy working. Noah and Jacob went out on a call. They got word from the neighbors that they heard gunshots, and Liam sent them to find out what happened. Be careful. Make sure you do a thorough check. I can't go with you. You see for yourself what's going on. I'd love to get out of here. I can't stand it. I hate it when they arrive, and everything's upside down. Noah patted his friend sympathetically on the shoulder. By the way, we're expecting you this weekend. My wife has decided to organize a dinner, so come. But it began. As far as I understand, there will be someone else there besides the three of us. So let's not play tricks. I said come, so come. What can I do with you? You're stubborn. If you don't come, you'll come after me. Having arrived at the scene of the accident, they went to the specified address. It turned out that the husband came from a business trip and caught his wife with his lover. It turned out like in that anecdote. She was expecting him only in the evening, and he decided to surprise her. It's not clear which one of them was more successful, but he ended up just grabbing a shotgun and firing it into the air. Liam God, no one was hurt. The gun checked out. It was registered. The man had already regained consciousness and said he didn't mean to kill anyone. Just from what he saw, he decided to scare them both. They questioned the spouse and her lover, who sat pale in the corner, afraid to even look up. It's always like this that makes me want to get married. It's scary that I'll be at work like this, and my wife will bring home guys like this, who then, when asked, can't even say a single word. But this guy's a good man. He didn't aim at anybody. Had the sense not to go to jail for his wife. You're right. It's an unpleasant situation. But I'm telling you, don't think bad thoughts. You don't know what's going on in their family. Things can happen. But to be honest, I don't like this story myself. The only thing I know is that my wife is at work now, so I'm not worried about her. Well, how do you know? Maybe I don't. They're handing in the project today. They've been working on it for a month, and the presentation is today. So I'm pretty sure she's at work. Besides, we just got married. I don't think she's gotten tired of me that fast. They laughed some more at the unlucky lover as they drove back to the department. In the evening when Noah got home, Lisa was already preparing dinner. She was pleased that the project had gone well, and they were all going to get a bonus. How was your day? Anything interesting? Noah told a story about a shooting. Lisa listened attentively, then said, I've never understood women like that. How could they do such a thing? Is it not possible to be honest about everything, to tell her husband that her love is over, that she has met another person, and that she wants a divorce? Apparently, she thinks that this way she'll save the family, but also get pleasure on the side. But it doesn't work that way. Sooner or later all this will come out. I think so too. Besides, you know how I told you I was seeing a man. Turns out he wasn't seeing me. I was alone. I remember how hurt I was when she called me, and told me all about it. And then, when the pain subsided, I realized that it wasn't my destiny to be with him. I can see it's true now. You're right. Life does surprise us sometimes. I guess it was time to call it a day. Her husband did. Let's just drop it, because, it's a little uncomfortable. Hey, have you talked to Liam? He's coming over on Sunday. He will. I mean, he knew right away what we invited him for. And the light's coming too. That's what I told you about him. I think they'll like each other. Maybe they'll go out with each other like us. And then get married. She's a very cool girl, kind and sincere. Well, I hope she's pretty too, because you describe her like there's something wrong with her. You men are so hard to please. If she's pretty, it's bad, because she'll go out. And if she's not very pretty, that's bad too. You don't like it. How can you do that? What if she's just a good person? Or don't you want girls like that? But why are you so angry? I was just asking. Besides, to be honest, Liam and I have similar tastes. We've always liked the same kind of girls, except they always chose me. They never even looked at him. I see. Well, we'll see. Let's hope there's sympathy between them, and then we'll see. On Sunday, as soon as Noah saw Svetlana, he immediately realized that there would be no sympathy. It wasn't that Svetlana was ugly. It was just that there was nothing about her that Liam liked. She was very tall, thin, had a slightly long nose, exactly all the things his friend couldn't stand. He liked girls who were short, not too thin, and had a little nose. I think you're trying to scare my Liam. Believe me, if he doesn't run away as soon as he sees your entourage, it's a miracle. Well, what if he does like her? Okay, I just feel sorry for her. She's my age. She should get married too. But as you can see, it's just bad luck. I understand, but I can't help it. All right. It's too late to think. Let's get acquainted. And so it happened. Liam didn't even look at Sveta to save the evening. Lisa talked to Liam and Noah talked to Svetlana so she wouldn't be so lonely. Then Noah called a cab for Lisa's friend and went to take Liam home in his car. He hadn't had a drink today, so he could drive. I'm sorry about what happened. I just saw her and realized it wasn't gonna work out. Come on, there's nothing to be upset about. Honestly, I really enjoyed my time here. I had a great time tonight. But about Svetlana, you knew right away she wasn't my type. Well, I realized it right away too. To be honest, I didn't even want to talk to her. So thanks for helping me out. It's no big deal. Maybe next time it'll work out. When Noah got home, Lisa was doing the dishes. She was kind of brooding. And Noah thought it was because of her friend. Don't feel bad. It went so well, though. But it's not our fault we don't like girls like that, is it? You should have asked me first, what's Liam's taste? And I would have told you. Yeah, I'm fine. I just feel kind of tired. I've been feeling sick for 3 days now. My head hurts all the time. I feel sleepy. If this keeps up, I'll probably go to the hospital, see what's wrong. Or maybe you shouldn't wait. Why don't I take you there tomorrow morning? You think I'll see you tomorrow morning? I'll probably call Miranda now. Let her know I'm gonna be a little late tomorrow. She'll cover for me. I can count on her. In the morning, as agreed, Noah took Lisa to the hospital. By the way, he also said he'd be a little late for work. What happened? Yeah, Lisa went to the hospital at the detention center. She didn't feel well. So I figured, why risk it? It's better to go straight to the hospital. You're doing the right thing. Keep in touch. Call me if you need anything. He waited impatiently for his wife. He didn't want to think bad thoughts, but time passed and she was still gone. All sorts of thoughts came into his head, but Noah tried his best he could to think only of good things. But then the dark thoughts began to grind at him again. They say that if everything was fine, then she would feel normal. So it must be something serious, so she must be sick. But finally she appeared in the doorway. He looked at her anxiously, trying to read something in her face, but then he was relieved to see her smiling. He said as she came up to him, "I've been worried sick. We're having a baby." At first he froze, not quite sure what she was talking about. Then he grabbed her in his arms from around him. "Oh my God, what a blessing. But you're fine, because the doctor told you it's a condition that happens in the first few months of pregnancy. I'm fine, so don't worry. Now take me to work. I'm already late enough as it is. It's gonna be embarrassing in front of Miranda." Maybe you shouldn't be embarrassed. Maybe you should take a sick day. Maybe you should just quit already. "Noah, don't panic. I'm not sick. So you don't have to worry about me. I'm fine." Noah couldn't calm down. He kept looking at his wife as he drove her to work. Happiness overwhelmed him at last. Soon they would have a child. It didn't matter if it was a boy or a girl. He wanted a girl more, of course, and he didn't know why. I guess he'd always wanted a little sister, but his parents didn't want any more children. He remembered his mom was in poor health, but as it turned out, it wasn't just his mom. Daddy had gone before her. First thing he did when he got to work was go into Liam's office. "What happened with Lisa?" "It's okay. It's fine. We're having a baby." While Liam was digesting, Noah poured himself a glass of water and drank it down. "So you're having a baby soon." "Liam, I'm going to be a father soon. Friend, this needs to be celebrated immediately. Let's go out tonight. I promise we won't be gone long." Okay. But just for a little while. I don't want to worry Lisa, you know. She can't be here right now. I have to be there for her." "Well, just let her know we won't be long." "Yeah. Besides, I don't think she'll have time for you right now. You know, in her condition, she'd rather sleep than think. What are you doing home so late from work?" "You don't say. She's gotten so moody. It's hormones, I guess. But I'll warn her." They talked some more, and then they went about their work. Noah sat in his office because he'd been neglecting paperwork lately. Of course, he liked the work of an operative very much, but all this paperwork pissed him off. In the evening, Liam came to see him so that he could finally go somewhere, as they had agreed. "I've been watching here all day. You're sitting here today, telling me you've saved up some paper. I have, but I don't have much left. I'm gonna check out some more stuff. I told you the first day, don't put it off. It's better to do it all at once. You're not the only one, though. I've had all my operatives kicked out of here for not following their cases on time. What if there's an inspection or a commission? Don't you realize it's me who's gonna get caught first, not you?" "That's not nagging. It won't happen again. I'm not used to it. But that's okay. I realize today I'm not gonna do it again. All right, let's go, or you'll be standing over my head like this." They sat in a cozy cafe and remembered their childhood. "Do you remember when we were boys? My dad used to get very angry with me when I stayed overnight at your place. I remember he always told me that I didn't have a house of my own, that I was staying with friends. And at that moment it seemed to me that they didn't need me, that they loved my little sister more than me. And your family was always so nice. Your mom made such good pies. I even wanted them to adopt me. I like your family because you're not alone, because you have a little sister. I remember telling my parents to find me a little brother or sister. I'll talk to Lisa. I don't think she'd mind having another baby later. You wait. Don't rush into it. Let her bear it for a while. You know how hard it is for women these days, the environment. Does it affect them like that? The main thing is that everything is fine. And then, I think, you'll figure it out on your own. By the way, you called her and told her we'd be late. What about the first thing? I just realized she didn't care. She told me as soon as she got home from work, she'd go to bed. She was tired. Maybe you're working. Well, not to tire her out. Yes, I offered. But she doesn't want to. She likes working there so far. Plus, she and your Miranda are really good friends. I know my sister speaks well of her too. She says that at her birthday party, she brought her over to introduce her to me. Thought it was gonna work out between us. But you stole my girlfriend like you always do. I'm sorry, man, but she ain't no cow for me to steal her away like that. You saw it. You liked me too. Yeah, you did. I'm just kidding. All right, let's have another drink. And then we'll go home to bed. I'm tired. I have been lately. I'm thinking about taking a vacation and going somewhere. That's a good idea. It's a good idea. But who's gonna let me go? You see, there's a lot of unsolved cases. Stats are down. We got the end of the quarter coming up. So my boss is gonna have me on my ass in no time. You gotta dream sometimes. It makes me feel bad. Noah understood his friend. At such an age as theirs, he had long wanted some stability, and most importantly, a family, a favorite wife and children. He was lucky, but not off the bench yet. Les's pregnancy went more or less smoothly. She didn't have any splinters, like smelling paint or anything else. She didn't even want to eat fruit. Said she didn't want to eat sweets anymore. She ate tomatoes for vegetables. Noah was worried about her still working like that. He didn't like it. He was afraid she would get stressed out there and it would affect the baby. Don't worry, it's not long now and I'll be on maternity leave soon. I'll stay home and wait for you. I don't know what you can do all day at home. I do everything on the weekends in a couple hours, all my own stuff. And that's what you think you're doing now. And then, when your belly gets bigger, you won't be able to do everything so quickly. Noah understood Lisa. It's hard for a woman in that position. True, he had become alarmed by her attitude toward him. It was as if she was estranged from him. When he'd come home from work and try to kiss her, she'd shy away. Annoyed, and he never approached her again after that. This started to stress him out, and he decided to talk to a friend because there was no one else to talk to. I don't know what's going on with her. I even sleep on the couch now. I've become irritable. It's horrible. I've been home for a week now. When she went on maternity leave, she couldn't take it anymore. I don't even walk like this anymore. Oh, come on. She's just had a rough last few months. That's what's so annoying. You'll see, she'll have the baby and it'll all blow over. Yeah, I can't wait, because it's getting unbearable. I didn't realize it's not only women and men who have a hard time during such periods. Now I've experienced it myself. Ward sympathetically looked at his friend, but did not say anything to distract him. He decided to talk about work. How's it going with that gang of raiders who bomb gas stations? Sneaky guys trying to stay off the security cameras. Apparently, they do a lot of due diligence before they go in. Although you can see they're all young, athletic, but smart. I've asked Jacob to scrutinize all the footage. I think that's how we'll find someone. You know, in our job, any little thing can help us. So you go and see, and you heal yourself. But you can help Jacob too. Can you imagine how much he has to review? I have to go away. They're calling me back into the office. So I'm gonna have to take care of all of you. Don't let me down, guys. Make sure you find a lead. Noah nodded and left. All day long he and Jacob stared at the screen, trying to figure something out. Nothing. Gas stations. 1 million cars of people. It's almost impossible to figure out which one is the culprit. Maybe we look at the ones who show up here more than once. But look, this guy was here yesterday, early morning, then shows up the next day and later in the evening. And what Jacob, he could be a cab driver. And the gas station is convenient for him. Maybe it's close to home. Maybe the price is a little cheaper. No, we need to look at this together, not separately. This person has to show up once, but at different gas stations. Only again, they're smart. And it's possible they're sending different people out each time, but at least one of them has to show up twice. And they did find him. A young guy who buys mineral water in the first case and buys cigarettes in the second. There was no doubt about it. It's the guy from the gang that's doing the raids. He's acting too strangely different from people who just come to get gas. He's looking around like he's looking for video surveillance. Of course, he was doing it discreetly, but they saw it and realized it was him. Make a quick printout. Show it to everyone and have them run it through the system. Maybe he's been in our neighborhood before. Add it. I think we found them. Noah rushed out of the office and ran into Liam, who was in high spirits. I see it didn't hit you as hard as you expected. However, smiling, he asked his friend. But that's about it. Listen, I think we found them. It's too early to tell, but I think we're on the trail. Noah came home, but he didn't approach Lisa, just greeted her and went to wash his hands. But his wife surprised him today. She came up to him and gave him a hug and gave Mill a peck on the cheek. I'm sorry, darling. It's just that lately I've been unbearable. You know, home alone all day. I guess I'm just nervous. What's different today? Oh, nothing much. I just talked to Miranda on the phone. She explained to me that these things happen and that the main thing is to be patient. So that's why I apologize to you. Come on, I understand. It's just sometimes it's weird to see you like this. I'm used to you and me being together. Now it's like you're pulling away from me. I'm gonna have to be patient a little longer. You see, once I have the baby, things will change. I'm looking forward to that too. Noah was at work when the phone rang. Lisa said she was having contractions and needed to be taken to the hospital. Noah didn't say anything to anyone because time was of the essence. He rushed to get his wife himself. He helped her into the car, put her bag in the trunk, and they rushed to the hospital. He saw how badly his wife was feeling. He tried to keep his eyes on the road and mentally begged himself to pull himself together. Everything would be all right. Now he would bring her to the hospital and everything would be fine. He returned to work when he was sure his wife had been placed in a room and a doctor was watching her. His hands were still shaking and he realized he couldn't work yet. He didn't want to think about anything else. All he could think about was his wife. So I didn't understand why you're so chilly. Peta told you, by the way. I see you're working together. Where have you been all this time? Then Liam, looking at his friend, asked Lisa right away. I took her to the maternity hospital. I can't think about anything else but making sure everything's okay. Let's go to my office. Why didn't you tell me? Are you serious? You think that's all I was thinking about? Okay, I'm sorry, but you know I'm worried about you too. Come on in. I'll make you some coffee. It'll calm you down. You know, you need to work on your head. You're distracted. If you worry so much, you're not helping anyone. You're right. Get your coffee. I'm gonna go. Where'd he go, by the way? I mean, he went on a burglary, said it wasn't his first time. There's been, like, 5 of them, but not in our neighborhood. The similarity is that in all 5 cases, people saw a truck and 3 guys. They look like jocks. All right. Go door to door, ask around. Maybe we can put together a sketch. Maybe we'll get lucky. Somebody remembered the license plate number. Although they're always fake in these cases, Noah, had a coffee and ran to the address Liam gave him. Work really helped. He forgot a little and didn't notice how the day flew by. Already when he was about to go to his wife's hospital to see how she was doing, he got a call that his wife was fine and had given birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. They also told him to come back tomorrow because his wife was resting now anyway. Noah drove home and smiled. They have a daughter, a baby girl. They will have her as beautiful as Mom and let her character be better than Mom's. And then we'll see. Maybe they'll wait a little longer. And Lisa will give him another son. It would be great if they had a daughter and a son. When he got home, Noah called his friend, but his phone was busy. He waited half an hour, but the phone was still busy. He wondered who his friend could be talking to for so long and decided that he had a girlfriend. Though if he did, he'd probably tell them. He probably wouldn't be sure about her yet. That's why he didn't say anything. Liam called him back. Saw you called me a couple times. Something came up. But of course you can congratulate me. I had a daughter, but that's it. I'm coming to you. You can't be left alone like this, so we'll celebrate together. Liam arrived half an hour after the call in a package he brought with him. The glass rattled suspiciously, and Noah realized that their night would drag on tonight. In the morning, they woke up both with heavy heads. Noah went to the kitchen, cursing himself for drinking so much last night. At least he'd gotten some sleep, because if he knew himself, he'd be up all night thinking about Lisa and his daughter. He made coffee, poured 2 cups, and went to the bathroom to clean himself up. When he came out, he saw Liam, who was already finishing his coffee. I understood correctly that this cup was meant for me. That's right. Go wash up, and let's go to work. I'll have to call a cab. I'm not driving like this today. Yeah, you and I had a great time. It's so appropriate for such an occasion. Call Lisa, tell her we'll be there today, and ask her if she needs anything. A week later, Lisa was discharged, and Noah brought them home. For him, the week had gone by fast, because in addition to his work, he and Liam had set up the baby's room. He personally put little Kelly in her crib. He couldn't stop looking at the baby, seeing how pretty she was. Lisa, she looks just like you, I think. Just as pretty. How can you see what she looks like? She's just a little girl. And then the doctor said she might even change her eye color. Noah thought Lisa said it with a kind of irritation. He looked at his wife, but she turned away and left the room. Noah thought that she was probably just tired and that she needed some rest. He decided that he would go to bed next to the baby so that his wife would get some sleep at night. When did he suggest this to her? She didn't say anything to him, just turned and went into the bedroom. It got a little uncomfortable. It felt like she was angry with him. Angry about something. But why? He couldn't figure it out. He wanted to go ask her because he hated the whole understatement thing. But then he changed his mind and decided that he would talk to her tomorrow morning. He went into the kitchen and saw his wife sitting by the window drinking water. Noah did not ask to make him coffee. He decided to do everything himself. He glanced at his wife, who did not pay any attention to him. Lisa, why don't you tell me what's going on? Or do I have to guess again where I've gone wrong and what I've done wrong? Lisa flinched, turned her head, and then looked away again. It's okay. It's just that I'm probably not feeling well. That's right, I guess. Or do you really not want to say hello? You just tell me, and I'll help you any way I can. You want me to take some time off, take a vacation, and stay with you for a while. When she heard that, it was like she was scared. No, I'll be fine on my own. And most likely, after childbirth, depression will pass. Just don't worry about it. Her words calmed him down a little finally. At least she spoke to him. All right. Then, if anything, you call me immediately, and I'll come to you immediately. It was business as usual at work. Liam was out of sight again. They called the chief. The phone was silent too, and Noah even wanted to call. But then he restrained himself, knowing that if Lisa needed anything, she would dial it herself. And while she's like this, it's best not to bother her. But with each passing day, Lisa's depression grew worse and worse. Noah did what he did, what he suggested, and it all ended in a fight. Lisa screamed at him to leave her alone, that she was tired of sitting around all day, alone to look after the child and do household chores. When they calmed down a little and he suggested taking time off again, she would talk him out of it, saying it would only make things worse. To make things easier for his wife, Noah would rush home from work to be with little Kelly. After such scandals, Lisa's milk had disappeared, and now they were feeding her baby food. He learned to dilute it himself, so there was no problem. He changed her diapers, bought her before bedtime, and then rocked her in his arms and told her stories. Lisa would go to the bedroom, and he could hear her talking quietly to someone on the phone. One day he asked her who she was talking to all the time. She said Miranda because she needed advice and had no one else to turn to. Noah had no idea what else he had to do to stop his wife from being the way she'd been lately. For 6 months now, they've been cat and dog. He was so tired of it that he decided to invite a friend over to sit down and talk. He hadn't seen much of Liam lately. He just needed to talk. What happened again? Lisa's a mess. She came home from the hospital, and she's not herself. I don't know what to do. Maybe you can tell me what I should do. Should I send her on vacation with the baby? Let her rest somewhere. Or better yet, let her go by herself, and I'll stay with the baby. What do you think? Listen, talk to her, and I'll give you some time off. Let her go to the sea for a week. It's nice there now. I think it could work. Yeah, it'll work. Don't worry about it. She's been under a lot of pressure, I guess, all at once. So she's looking for someone to take it out on. She'll get some rest. She'll get her head together, and things will work out. When Noah got home, he called Lisa into the kitchen to tell her what he and Liam had just discussed. Lisa, why don't you go to the sea for a week and get a tan? I think you'll feel better. Lisa's eyes glistened with excitement. Are you serious now? I can go to the sea. What about your daughter? I'll take some time off to babysit. You can see I'm doing a great job with her, so you can rest easy in front of my eyes. Lisa switched. She was just flying around the apartment, didn't know what to take. She was looking for a suitcase, and she was so excited that Noah even admired her. He hadn't seen his wife like this in a long time. He was glad that she was finally happy again. 3 days later, he sent his wife to the sea and returned home to his little daughter. With her at that moment was a neighbor, whom he asked to babysit while he was away. You're not afraid to let your wife go to the sea alone, no? Why would I be afraid? It's just that Lisa really needs some rest. But the neighbor has already gone to the exit, and it is her. Noah did not like it very much. Excuse me, Cindy, what's wrong? I can see you wanted to tell me something, but for some reason you didn't dare. Cindy hesitated at the door, and he realized she knew something. Tell me, please. Don't worry, Cindy. It's a childhood friend of mine. I told him some things. He probably just came to my wife's house to talk to her, to comfort her, to support her. You can see I'm a little rough. Maybe I don't have the right words, but I know how to comfort. That's up to you, but I warned you. It just doesn't seem that way. She didn't finish. She just turned and walked away. Noah thought about what she said. No, it can't be like that. Not Liam. And Lisa was indifferent to him. She kept telling him she'd never look at him. It's just the neighbor's imagination. So she's just making things up. Women are like that. If a man comes to a married woman, there's something wrong. Then again, why didn't Liam say anything? Probably just didn't want to upset his friend. He saw that things were bad enough as it was, and he couldn't help. Once again, having thought about it, Noah came to the conclusion that it was nothing serious, and his closest people would never betray him. On the third day, Jacob arrived at Noah's house. Hi, Noah. When are you coming back to work? I can't do without you. Our bosses have gone missing. We can't get through. It's crazy. Who do you mean? Yeah, your friend hasn't been at work for 3 days. We've been calling him, and he won't pick up. He must have warned his boss, because he's walking around calm. And David is the boss, as always. When Liam's away, he's the only one who doesn't know anything. There were no orders. Maybe you know what's going on. Noah shook his head. Then he picked up his phone and started dialing Liam's number. Maybe it's not trying, but it's turned off on him. I don't understand how this is even possible. How is your wife resting, by the way? What does she say? I talked to her last night. She says everything is fine. She's swimming, sunbathing, eating fruit with some girls. I met her. They're going out on the town together. Even went to the movies recently. I'm happy for her. Let her have a vacation. But I'm worried about Liam. I don't understand. He's never done this before if he's not feeling well. He never turns his phone off. Do you happen to know if he's seeing someone? I had that thought the other day. I think he probably decided to take a vacation with her, so he disconnected his phone. But it's weird that he didn't tell me. We've always shared everything with him before. But this time, He just didn't say anything. Maybe he just met a married woman and doesn't want us to know about it. Noah remembered the conversation with his neighbor and felt uneasy. Something inside him tingled, which made him feel uncomfortable, but he thought again that his friend would never do that to him. What are you thinking about? You think I'm right? I don't know, to be honest. Maybe you are. Well, he'll show up soon enough. You'll see. Then we'll ask him where he's been for so long and why he's been missing. Noah was rocking Kelly in his arms because his little bee was still awake. She took in his arms, trying to play with his ear, touching his nose, and patting something affectionately to him. Sleep, Kelly. Sleep, my girl. Mommy is coming tomorrow. You must miss her very much. If you don't sleep, she's gonna babysit you, and Daddy will go back to work and talk to his friend. Because you can't just disappear for a week without telling your friends. Kelly finally fell asleep, and he put her in her crib and went into the kitchen. Noah put the kettle on. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. He went to open it and saw Liam on the doorstep. He stood there happy, tanned, as if he'd been to the sea. Come in, missing soul. Where have you been? Let me ask you. You know, I got bored. I just packed up and went to the dacha. I went fishing with local men and drank moonshine in the evenings, but I had a good rest. You know, I was so tired lately that I decided to drop everything and leave. I also turned off my cell phone so no one would bother me. I didn't say anything to you. I figured you wouldn't have time for me right now. You've got a little baby on your hands. And then Noah realized that Liam was lying to him. He didn't believe a word he said. And he didn't like that either. He decided to pretend to believe every word he said, but he decided that he would personally follow both his wife and Liam. If those two dared to deceive him, they'd be sorry. They'll be very sorry because they can't do that. He understands. Things happen in life, and he told Lisa that they're not immune to feelings, and he asked her that if she fell in love with another man, she should tell him right away, not go behind his back. That's exactly the kind of thing he wouldn't forgive her for. Come into the kitchen and have tea with me. I've just put the kettle on. Listen, where's the fish? I remember that you always brought me your catch before. And now what? Spared it for an old friend. They ate it all. You won't believe me. Fish was the only thing we ate, you know. We had to have something to eat, so we ate it. I see. But the main thing is that you had a rest, because the guys from the department lost you. Even came to see me. We've been working on it. Even came to the conclusion that you have a woman. And not just any woman, but apparently a married woman. That you are hiding her so carefully from us by saying these words. Noah stared at Liam, but he didn't let on. But Noah noticed his friend's hands trembling. Couldn't it be? It couldn't be possible. But everything pointed to the fact that Noah was right. All right, Liam, you go get some rest. You have to work early tomorrow. I'm tired. Besides, I gotta pick up my wife from the airport. She's coming back tomorrow. So, you're going to work soon too? Yes, I am. We'll see each other more often now. I guess. Liam must have felt that Noah had changed towards him, but he didn't say anything. They didn't need words, because each of them realized that a wall had grown between them. Lisa walked towards Noah, smiling happily. He smiled too, though it was hard for him to do so. Yesterday, after Liam had left, he had sat down and thought it over, remembering what had been going on between them lately. He didn't like it all that much. It looked like they were cheating on him, but he didn't want to believe it. He decided that he wouldn't say anything until he was sure with his own eyes. Hello, Noah. How good to see you. How's Kelly? She's fine. We're going home now. You'll see for yourself. You don't look so happy, do you? Maybe I'm not happy my wife's finally home. Are you happy to be home? Or are you going to be depressed again after a few days? I know you're tired after all this time. That's not true. Needed a rest after giving birth to a young daughter. I'm all alone all the time. That's what made me feel bad. Noah didn't say anything. Inside him, everything was racing, but he ordered himself to calm down after he brought Lisa home. He went to work himself. He didn't feel like sitting at home with his wife. Although just a few days ago, he had been looking forward to her and thought that as soon as she arrived, they would have time to spend together. Now he didn't feel like doing anything anymore. These days, he just went deep into his work, to distract himself a little and not to think about what was upsetting him so much. He was starting to get the hang of it, and it was starting to seem like he was just making it up. He was relieved, and Liam was doing everything he could to make them friends again, just like before. That day he came in from a call and went to Liam's office to tell them what had happened. Well, and to wait for instructions, because he and Jacob didn't know how to approach the case. His office was closed, and the desk clerk said he'd been gone for half an hour. Noah thought he would go home too and check his suspicions. If he didn't find Liam, then he was just making it up. He drove up to the house, looked around for his friend, and felt good. So he was making it up. He was starting to get jealous. It's all one thing on top of another. He just hugged his wife, apologized, and kissed his daughter. He walked into the apartment and got cold. Liam's sneakers were on the floor, though there was hope that they were just sitting in the kitchen drinking tea. But the house was quiet, so he quietly made his way into the room and headed for their bedroom. What he saw was a shock to him. Noah sat beside his daughter's crib, thinking about what he should do next. To his wife he would not give his daughter, no matter what she told him, no matter what she expressed of him. He would not give her his daughter, and that's it. After he saw his wife and his friend together in bed, his first thought was to kill. But then he pulled himself together and went into the nursery to his daughter, who was sitting in her crib playing with toys. He waited for the lovers to finally den and get ready to talk. There was silence in the apartment, and Noah even thought that they had just taken, and like the last cowards ran away. But then he heard a noise in the kitchen and realized that he had to go and talk. Lisa was putting the kettle on, and when Noah came in, she pretended not to notice him. "Stop playing hostess. Sit down. We need to talk. How do we proceed? I'm not gonna listen to you. I don't want you anyway. You're going to pack your things now and just get out of this house. I'm not gonna talk to you about anything anymore. And I don't want to. You know I hate traitors. Now think how much I hate you." Lisa turned pale, but then, apparently, pulled herself together and said, "Noah, well, where am I going with a small child at night? You're going alone. I'm not giving Kelly to you. Now what you've done to us is your fault. If you'd had the guts to come clean with me, I'd have given you your daughter. I'd understand, and I'd let you go, on the condition that I see Kelly. But what you've done makes me want to kick you out of the house. And besides, I don't want you seeing your daughter, but any court will give me my daughter. A child always stays with its mother. Not in your case. If you don't listen to me, I'll destroy you. Don't forget where I used to work. I can do a lot of things. I'll make sure no one even knows it's me. So if you want to live, you'd better go alone to your lover and live on your own. Are you going to give him another baby? I think you've probably talked to him about it, but leave me alone. And tell your lover that if he starts helping you take my daughter away from me, he'll suffer the same fate as you." Lisa tried to object, but Noah raised his eyes to her and she fell silent. "I don't get it. Why are you still here? I told you to get out of this house. You're not staying here another minute." "You got it." Lisa snapped out of her seat, and he heard her open the closet and begin to quickly put things in her suitcase. Noah got up, went to the baby's room, closed the door behind him, and sat down beside his daughter's crib. His soul was aching in his heart too. Just yesterday he had both a wife and a friend, and now he had no one. Everyone had betrayed him, both stabbed in the back. Well, he'll get out of it. He's seen worse in his life, and he'll raise a daughter who'll love her father, and he'll be proud of her. Kelly came in from school, tossed her backpack, and disappeared into the bathroom. Noah sighed. Apparently there was trouble at school again. He then immediately realized that he would not give his bullet to a regular school, but to a grammar school. True, it cost him money, but he didn't worry about his pension, which was immediately credited to him. When he resigned after the wounding, it was not bad, and they had enough to live on. They still had some savings. But then, of course, he had to look for work. He left the police as soon as he divorced his wife. He realized he couldn't work anymore. Eventually, he got a job at the same gymnasium, and the janitors were paid quite well there. And there wasn't much work. True, his daughter was dissatisfied, saying that her classmates would tease her that her father worked as a simple janitor. But he then answered her that there was nothing wrong with it. It would be worse if her father was lying drunk outside this very gymnasium. If she used to tell her father when she was in trouble at school, she stopped now. It was Lisa who was to blame after all, for meeting with her daughter and telling her story. He roughly understood what she had told her, but Kelly didn't say anything, and he didn't bother to ask. He'd seen the ex-wife himself recently. She had tried to talk to him. He left the house to go to work. She came up to him, probably waiting for him. "Hey, Noah, can I talk to you for a second?" Noah didn't want to talk to her. What was I talking about? About the past. So she destroyed everything, even the good memories. And I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you back then. It just happened. I was afraid to tell you, I guess. Lisa, why are you telling me this now? I don't care what you wanted or didn't want. You live your life, so live it. You and I had an agreement. I have no more claims against you. Let's close the subject. I broke up with Liam. Noah was silent. He didn't need that information. The only thing he couldn't understand was why she was telling him. Cancel it, and whatever you want, so we can live together again. I remember you loved me very much. Is it really over? And our daughter, she needs her mom. I checked. You don't have anyone else. You never remarried. Let's try to start over. Lisa, are you crazy for me to accept you after what you did? You certainly have no conscience at all. I was wrong about you. I still can't forgive myself. So go on living on your own. Or better yet, find someone else. Don't touch me and my daughter. You're dead to us. He left then. But he also thought that she would probably meet her daughter. And so she did. He and his daughter had a difficult conversation after their meeting, after which the relationship has deteriorated. Daddy, why did you lie to me? You said Mom left us. Turns out it was you who kicked her out of the house. Didn't Mom tell you why I did that? She said you were overly jealous of her and jealous of your friend. And then you kicked her out. How could you deceive me like that? I believed you. I thought only my father could tell the truth, but you. And you've been lying to me all these years. And now you've taken a job as a janitor. You're embarrassing me in front of the kids. They tease me all the time. And now my mom told me this. I hate you, and don't you dare come near me. It was really hard to hear that. My first impulse was to bring Lisa into the house and make her tell her daughter the truth. But then, after some thought, he decided not to say anything. Why should he? It's his grief. He'll never forget it. When in one moment he lost both his wife and a close friend. In fact, he was not the first, not the last. It was a shame that in the end, he was the only one to blame. From that day on, his daughter stopped talking to him. He didn't know what was going on at her school. She never told him anything. Besides, her graduation ball was approaching, and he realized that his daughter needed an outfit and tried to talk to her about it. Daughter, let's buy you a beautiful dress. I've been saving money for such an occasion, so that you would be the most beautiful in school. I don't want anything from you. I don't care what anyone says about me. I'll wear it to my old dress, though. I don't care what I wear if my whole life is messed up because of you. People at school make fun of me and make fun of me. And you're here with your dress. You kicked Mom out. Thanks, Dad. I don't want anything from you. When I turn 18, I'll leave you right away. I'll live on my own, just so I don't have to see you anymore. She ran to her room, and he could hear her crying. It made his heart bleed. Only he didn't know what he could do to help her. Of course, if he had a mother, she'd tell him. She would have guided him, but she wasn't there. That made it all the more painful. He was even beginning to think that he'd probably done the wrong thing then, that he hadn't allowed Kelly to be taken away. But he felt so bad that he was already alone, and now he wouldn't have his daughter. He may be selfish, but he was only thinking of himself at that moment. Lisa didn't really insist on having his daughter back in his mind. Any other mother would have crawled on her knees for her child, begged, tried to do something. Not her. After all, she hadn't even asked him to let him see her. It never happened. So what do we do now? How to calm her down? If she now, like a hedgehog, released her prickles and does not let anyone near her. She's just like him, isn't she? That's exactly how he defended himself back then. Except she's small. Kelly saved him. Otherwise, he would have done something stupid. She saved him, and he can't help her. He remembered how the day after he'd found out, he'd gone to the police station to write a letter of resignation. He met Liam in the corridor. The one, when he saw him, ran to his office and locked himself in there. How nasty was that? He couldn't believe his friend was such a coward. He probably always had been. Only Noah didn't notice it, or just didn't want to notice it. He wanted to tear it all down then, but he didn't. He just quit and walked away. And then, just like his daughter now, he cried for her little crib. Only he's an adult, and his daughter is still a child. She doesn't understand a lot of things, and that's why it seems to her that everyone is an enemy. Graduation finally came. Kelly looked at herself in the mirror and decided that she would wear her old dress. She only had one, though. Her father had bought it for her once, and she told him not to do it again. A gaudy dress that she never actually wore. She herself preferred to wear more jeans and shorts. It was much more comfortable that way. Most likely from being raised by her father. Had her mom been there, things would most likely have been different. Remembering her mom made Kelly sad again. She texted her that there would be a graduation, but her mother said she wasn't coming. She had something to do. It made the table even sadder. She didn't understand her mom. She always said she loved her, that she always wanted to be there for her. But the weird thing is, after that conversation, they never saw each other again. Sometimes Kelly texted or called her, but the conversations were always brief, and her mother never responded to texts. And then there was her relationship with her father. She has said so many mean things to him, but she thinks he deserves it. He'd been walking around like he was in the water the last few days, but she didn't feel sorry for him. Since he'd done such a bad thing to her mom, let him suffer now. As she walked out of the driveway, she ran into her neighbor and Aunt Cindy. "What? It's graduation today. What do you want from your dad? Didn't he buy you a nice dress?" "I don't want anything from him. Why are we fighting like this? What happened? Tell me." "He kicked my mom out of the house. He always told me she left us. My mom told me everything. What in God's name could she tell you? Listen to me. It all happened almost right in front of my eyes. You're a grown-up girl. If you can take offense at your father like that, then really listen to me. Your mother, while your father was at work, she invited another man home. Noah's best friend, Noah. They went on vacation together. I remembered Noah was so worried about your mother that she was weak after childbirth. She needed to improve her health, so he sent her to the sea. And she and her lover went there. They had fun there while your father was with you. I helped him sometimes. And the day it all happened, he caught them himself. I saw your father's friend jump out of the apartment like a scalded man on the run to get dressed. There you go, my dear, and your mother is a shameless one. Apparently, her boyfriend dumped her, so she decided to come to you again. Only I know Noah will never forgive betrayal. Kelly got cold feet. So that's what really happened. And Dad didn't say anything to her. He didn't berate Mom, didn't tell her how bad she was. He just didn't say anything. She was so ashamed of her behavior that she decided to find him at school and apologize. But she was unable to do so. Immediately, the class teacher came up to her and asked her as the head of the class to help her organize her classmates. Kelly realized that she would not be turned away and decided that as soon as it was over, she would immediately find her dad. Her classmates openly mocked her today, making fun of her dresses, telling her what she looked like and who she looked like. She regretted 100 times that she hadn't listened to her father and come to school in a proper outfit. But it was too late to change anything. She decided to be patient, knowing that it would all be over soon. When the ceremony was over and they were handed their diplomas, Kelly rushed towards the exit to find her father. She ran down the alley, looking around. Suddenly, the boys and a few girls from her class caught up with her. "Where's this poor girl going to pay? Did you decide to change it or what?" "Don't bother, we'll change it for you. But we decided to make it brighter. You're as gray as a mouse in it." Kelly didn't even have time to answer anything as a can of paint was poured over her, the bright red liquid spreading over her dress, her arms and hair. And she looked at the guys and couldn't say anything. It was so upsetting, and for some reason she felt sorry for the dress. Her father had bought it for her. He had tried so hard to choose. He wanted to please his daughter, and they were about to leave. Suddenly there was a call. Kelly recognized her father's voice. "Your advocate. His Majesty the janitor is here." "Shut your mouth, boy. You're talking to an officer, by the way. So one more word, son. I got you. And I can't hear you." Son nodded, looking with all his eyes at the janitor, who at the moment was not a janitor at all, but an officer who had glimpses of the will of an award on his chest. "You know what I tell you, when you get out of here, you're going to meet real life. Believe me, it's going to be very bad for you there, because people like you and your kind are not liked. And I'll add this, I know that there are more good guys out there, and that they can't stand guys like you. I used to be like that myself, so I know what I'm talking about." The boys scattered, and the father came to his daughter and tried to hug her. "I'm sorry, daughter. I just wanted to get here early. It's your graduation. But it just got a little out of hand. And here we are. I'll think of something. Let's go home. I'll help you quickly. Dad, please forgive me for everything. I'm sorry. You didn't talk to me much at all. I hardly know anything about you. Let's not be silent anymore. Let's always tell each other the whole truth." Noah nodded and pulled his daughter close to him, completely oblivious to the fact that he too was now covered in paint. "Daddy, they ruined your dress. To be honest, that's the only thing I felt bad about. It's okay. Let's go shopping with you tomorrow. I'll buy you anything you want." "I want to, Daddy. And now you and I will go home, and you and I will sit in the kitchen and pour ourselves some tea and talk. I'll tell you everything, and you tell me everything." Noah nodded, hugged his daughter, and they walked to the car.
Subscribe and click the bell.
Outside the door, hospital life was buzzing. Jacob sat at the resident's desk and filled out the histories of his patients. When he was a student, he had learned to disconnect from everything that interfered with thinking. It was a useful skill he used whenever work was at its fullest the previous night. The same thing had happened. An emergency situation had occurred. After midnight, a bleeding man was brought to the ward. The victim was brought in on a cart. Friends, drinking buddies, who, like the wounded man himself, were far from a little over. Interrupting each other, they told the doctor on duty. "How did the accident happen?" "Doc, we were just sitting around and nothing. And then Leo wanted to do an experiment. His wife keeps reproaching him for not being a man, like Leo's hands don't grow from there. So Leo decided to prove her wrong." From the story, accompanying the patient, Jacob realized that Leo dope in his head wanted to work with metal. But when he turned on the machine, which many years ago he had installed in the garage, something went wrong. The iron from which the accumulated in the houseman was going to make a flower broke out of his hands, and the sharp end entered the stomach. Although they were drinking themselves, they could hardly keep on their feet, and they realized that their friend could give God his soul, because one of the companions to the place of the banquet arrived by horse-drawn transport. They decided not to call an ambulance. Guys, finally, we'll get to the hospital faster. Otherwise, while our medics arrive, Leo will be glued to his flippers. The owner of the truck was very close to the truth, because the surgeon had to urgently gather a team to save the inadequate. The medics spent almost 4 hours to eliminate the consequences of the favorite experiment. The course of the operation was also complicated by the fact that anesthesia did not take the patient for a long time, and everyone was afraid that he would die from a great loss. But the man crawled out of the clutches of death and barely came off the anesthesia. With astonishment, examined the neighbors on the ward. "Guys, where are we? I don't know this place, and my head is ringing like a bell. Let me get a hangover." It so happened that the patient uttered these first words after the operation during his morning rounds. However, Leo mistook Jacob for one of his friends. But the doctor calmly responded to the patient's request. "Everything, brother, today is canceled. And in general, you will have to stop drinking." Leo shrieked, holding his hand over his stitched-up stomach. "No way. And who are you to tell me what to do?" Jacob calmly began to explain to the patient that he was in the hospital. Only Leo began to understand something, as at that very moment a furious woman with a red mop of hair on her head burst into the room. Not paying attention to the doctors and patients, she rushed to the love and began to shake his infirm body. "Why did you trash the garage? How many times have I asked you not to drive drunkards? But you just can't help yourself." Rough physical impact caused the victim a lot of pain. And he screamed. Raya's supposed to. "I'm in pain, of course." Jacob didn't expect to see such an impressive scene of family strife play out before his eyes. In the first seconds, he was a little confused, and then resolutely stood between the indignant woman and the patient's bed. "Ladies and gentlemen, what are you doing here? We barely saved your husband. Leave the room." The doctor's actions, especially his decisive tone, had a sobering effect on Emily, although she, unlike her husband, had no inclination to drink hard liquor. The woman folded her arms on, breasts of metal. "I'm sorry I'm not myself. He's poisoned my whole life. I can't stand this outrage anymore." Leo intuitively felt that the situation had changed in his favor, and with a pained expression on his face began to justify himself to Ray's wife. "It's all demons. Remember, I told you that the evil force has been hunting for me for a long time. And yesterday, too, as soon as I drank red wine, they and a few other devils began to persuade me to turn on the machine. They told me that I could be the second, and that my work would soon be auctioned off for the price of a nice yacht." The woman mumbled through her tears. "You're a fool, Leo." Turning to Jacob, she began to explain. "My Leo has had an extraordinary talent since childhood. When he was young, he studied to be an artist and drew pictures." Leo interrupted his wife. "How many times can I tell you that they paint pictures? They paint the remarks of the husband." Emily did not react and continued, "Painted paintings for sale. And then out of the blue, I started singing. I did everything I could to stop him. I chased his friends away. I spiked his vodka with note grass, all to no avail." Leo chuckled. "I'm like that. You can't test me with anything." His wife threw a threatening look in his direction and whispered, "Doctor, I wish I'd had time to ask you to stitch that ampoule in his stomach before the operation. You know what I mean." Emily looked pleadingly straight into his eyes, and Jacob did not know how to answer her culturally. After a long pause, he said, "I understand your anguish, but you are addressing the wrong address." At Emily's eyes sparkled in tears, and she reproachfully declared, "Right people say that our medicine is not capable of anything. Vaughn knew that over-the-river lives puts everyone on their feet, does not refuse anyone." The nurse, who was also present in the ward during the rounds, caught a threatening note in the voice of the local resident, and became, "You are right," to pull Emily out of the room. "Go, please, do not interfere with the doctor examining the patients," proudly shook the red-haired Punches. Emily left the room and Jacob was able to continue examining his patients. After the rounds, Nurse Tonika, as if, "By the way, told the doctor you are a new person at us, and have not yet had time to get acquainted with the peculiarities of local life. The fact is that specialists do not stay with us for long, So the population is forced to turn to healers, although most of such healers are charlatans. There is no other alternative. It is true that a young witch doctor who settled 3 years ago by the river really helps people. Tamichka wanted to add something else to her story, but at the last second she changed her mind. Jacob did not pay much attention to her words, although there was a case in his life, confirming the high effectiveness of unconventional methods of treatment. The man tried not to remember about that period, as it caused heartache. In Jacob's life, there were many difficult moments that he wanted to forget about. More than once he tried to start from scratch, but he did not always succeed. He had set out a month ago with such intentions too, although he hadn't planned a change of residence. But in the surgical department of the city hospital, where he had worked for almost 7 years, there was an unhealthy environment. And it happened after the superintendent appointed a reprimand Peter after the retirement of the old superintendent. The duties of the head for almost 6 months performed Jacob, and everyone was convinced that his candidacy is about to be approved at the top. But these optimistic predictions were not destined to come true. One morning, Jacob habitually opened the door of his office and froze from surprise. Behind his desk, a strange man stretched out languidly. Jacob did not start a scandal and delicately asked, "Sorry, I do not know what to call you, but I wonder why you are in my office." The guest jumped up and in one leap crossed the distance separating them, without giving Jacob a second thought. He shyly embraced him. "Jacob, my friend, don't you recognize me?" Jacob took a closer look and hardly recognized the fat man. If you take off the smugness of Peter's face, who in his student years was a course younger than him, already then about this guy there were ambiguous rumors that like this is the son of an official from the highest echelon, and therefore in front of him automatically open all the doors, because Jacob did not have to previously cross paths with Peter, as he was called in the eyes of acquaintances. He did not pay attention to such gossip. Jacob didn't think fate would bring him back together with this upstart. 15 years after graduation, Peter's embrace lasted longer than the time foreseen for the summer. So Jacob had to use force to free himself from his guest. He responded to Peter's ebullient greeting, quite restrained. "I'm sorry, I really didn't recognize you right away. You've changed a lot, you know." Peter immediately took offense. Every man has his faults. Although, in principle, my imposing build does not cause me much discomfort. Genetics is to blame. My appetite is fine. We're all Peter people, but I don't consider it a disadvantage. Jacob did not want to listen to the summarily speech of the visitors, because he had a busy working day ahead of him. "Peter, I basically don't care what your weight is, and I'm not interested in other people's personal problems. It's surgery day, and every minute counts. But I realize it's no coincidence that you're in my office this morning. I'd like to hear an explanation for this intrusion." Peter was much shorter than Jacob, and he did not succeed in looking down on his rival. He thrust up his chin and spoke defiantly to Jacob. "This is not an invasion. As of today, I am acting superintendent. My nomination was approved last night." There was an awkward pause. Apparently, Peter expected his opponent to object or bemoan the loss of his position. But Jacob took the news very calmly. "Thank you. Now everything is clear." Jacob quickly gathered his papers and headed for the exit. "That's it. I've cleared the room. You can settle in." Peter barely shook his head, making it clear that from this day on he would decide whom to punish and whom to pardon. And indeed, with the appearance of a new head, the situation in the department has deteriorated sharply. Not only Peter had no practical experience, but he was giving out his recommendations left and right. Peter brought his own staff to the department, which the old workers did not want to put up with. To their discontent, the new manager replied, "I'm not keeping anyone here who doesn't like a free exit. There are no irreplaceable people." Jacob tried to reason with Peter. "Peter, I think you got off on the wrong foot. You can't throw away experienced personnel like that. After all, medicine is a field where the loss of one good fighter can affect the result of the entire battle." Peter's sensible remark has got his chin up again. "Jacob, I do not need your advice. My main task is to organize the work in the unit entrusted to me. and I will pursue that goal with all means at my disposal. Do you like it or not?" Jacob had to keep his opinions to himself. In a few months at the helm, Peter had dispersed the old staff. He encouraged snitching in every possible way and liked to organize at the meetings demonstrative floggings of the guilty. At the same time, Peter completely disregarded the rules of medical anthology. When Jacob reprimanded him, he in his characteristic manner replied, "I do not care about your offenses. In my department, everyone has to work with the utmost dedication, and people worked hard. Many could not stand such a schedule and left. Only Jacob continued to believe that things could change for the better. But as the days went by, months went by, and the situation only worsened. It became completely unbearable when Peter single-handedly, without coordination with common sense, began to promote the products of his own relative, who headed a large pharmaceutical company. Since Jacob was the lead surgeon, the superintendent summoned him to her office. Jacob intuitively felt that the upcoming conversation did not bode well for him. Peter, as always, with ostentatious arrogance said, "Sit down, Jacob. You know yourself. There is no truth in feet." Familial address cut on the nerves, but Jacob restrained himself. "It's all right, Peter. I'll stand. I don't have time to sit around. The patients are waiting." The superintendent's face was distorted by a squeamish grimace. "Oh ho ho. You'd think you were indispensable. I have to start by reprimanding you. Remember once and for all, I am your boss and you are my subordinates, so address me properly. I mean by name and patronymic." The insolence of this self-loving baboon was infuriating. But Jacob emphasized, politely replied, "I have exactly the same counter-proposal for you. I, like you, have an extremely negative attitude to any manifestation of panic." Peter's eyebrows went up. "Even so. Well, I'll take that into consideration. Jacob, now let's get down to business." The superintendent tossed a small box across the table. "This is a new breakthrough drug developed by a domestic manufacturer. Look to whom in our department it can be assigned." Jacob immediately realized where the head of the department was bending. He forcefully pushed back the package with the drug. "I will not prescribe an unapproved drug. I'm ordering you." Peter's face reddened with indignation and covered with sweaty, twin sweats, but Jacob was not impressed by his anger. The surgeon firmly repeated, "I will not prescribe to the sick, untested remedies. And if you insist, Peter, I will appeal to the federal ministry. You don't think you alone have an omnipotent hand." After this altercation, the relationship between the chief and the lead surgeon soared completely. Peter, with the help of his snitches, watched the surgeon's every move. And when Jacob made an inexcusable mistake, refusing one patient in hospitalization, the head of the case blown up. Jacob was summoned to the regional department. They read out the entire form. He received a reprimand with a note and was deprived of a bonus for 6 months. Endless battles with the superintendent swamped Jacob. He felt on the verge of a breakdown and decided to have a man-to-man talk with Peter. Peter listened to him, and then with the same ostentatious superiority, said to Jacob, "Maybe I'll forgive you, if you ask me nicely." "Good. How's that?" Jacob expected the chief to start pushing that dubious drug on him again. But Peter came up with a more elegant punishment. "When you need something badly, it's not a bad thing to get down on your knees." Jacob laughed outright. "Peter, you should definitely consult a psychiatrist. You're overcome with unhealthy fantasies." That same day, he wrote a letter of resignation. One of the best surgeons in the city had been out of work for a month. He was about to take a job in the ER when he got the call from Andrew. "Jacob, I heard a rumor that you're out of work." "Yeah, I took a short break, but I got some ideas. I'm looking to change the field a little bit." Andrew yelled into the phone. "Don't even think about it. You're a surgeon from God. You dropped in on me. I want to offer you a place." Andrew Jacob was in the same class with Andrew. They were on a humanitarian mission together in Africa. Then their paths diverged. Andrew later graduated from the military department and was in hot spots. Once he was very unlucky and got a serious wound, after which he could not operate. When he was offered a position in the regional Ministry of Health, he accepted. As a man devoted to his favorite profession, Andrew did everything to save human life, in the global sense of the expression, having learned about the difficulties of Jacob, with whom they had been traveling around the world for several years. The high official immediately engaged in the employment of a friend. Jacob did not wait for a second invitation, and on the same day went to visit whom he greeted him warmly and immediately said, "There is a vacancy for a surgeon. Of course, you can refuse such an unenviable position, but this district hospital in the next 2 years will be renovated. I don't have to tell you what prospects await you." Jacob weighed the pros and cons and agreed to move to the backwoods. "Thank you, Andrew. I don't really have much of a choice, so I'll take you up on your offer." Andrew gave the surgeon a friendly pat on the shoulder. "A change of scenery will do you good. Perhaps in this you will meet your destiny." This wish embarrassed the man, who had long ago given up the search for his happiness. All his attempts to merge the family nest ended in painful losses, and he had long ago got rid of illusions. He put all his energies into his work. Sergiv was not distinguished by its scale. This small town is nestled on a hill and terrain. From the cave they are along and across, large and small rivulets. Many natural water bodies did not have names for easy orientation. The local population used such terms as the river behind the dark forest, or the river near the poultry farm. Molly learned the peculiarities of local toponymy as a child, when she and her mother came to visit Wendy. But in 20 years, things have changed. Even in such a wooded corner as Native Village, only an unnamed rivulet, flowing almost right next to the house. The old Snackar still rolled merrily in its waters into the unknown distance. In the spring, it fell apart, flooding the nearby meadows, but by the end of May it returned to its usual course again. And then it could be waded across on any property. Wendy's modest home had long ago been on a topsy-turvy path. For dozens of years, this woman had been doing her best to help the people of the district center and the small villages scattered on both sides of the creek. When Znaharina finished her earthly journey, the baton was taken over by her young relative Molly, appeared in the cabin across the creek in the middle of winter. In midsummer, she gave birth to a baby boy. The villagers told various legends about the girl and the unknown father of her child. Although more than 3 years have passed since that time, the folk myth-making has not died down. Of course, to the very heroine of these stories reached the scandalous rumors. But Molly did not attach any importance to them. When especially curious comrades pestered the girl with questions, she smilingly answered all sorts of in their own sophisticated. Such an answer caused misunderstanding and gossip. And try to find out whether you do not care what people say about the forest with the same childish smile answered, "Let them talk." That's what language is given to man to speak. A smart person would think before believing such stories. They are clever. Everything is forgivable for such people. Such statements of the young Snackar caused bewilderment. A girl of 25, no more than 25, and she talks as if she had a whole life behind her. However, those who expressed such an opinion was not far from the truth, because in her short life, this girl had time to learn and the bitterness of the loss of a loved one and betrayal of a friend. But she did not break and continued to believe in people. A new day was just dawning brightly in the east, and Molly was already on her feet. She had set out a plan of work from the evening, and now began to fulfill the first item of breakfast. If someone had told her 5 years ago that she would be counting minutes and seconds, Molly would not have believed such nonsense. The boy mumbled something in his sleep, and the young woman rushed to her son's crib. But the alarm was false, and she tiptoed into the miniature kitchen and began cooking. Although Molly had little culinary experience, she was pressured by her mother. "Daughter, remember once and for all, you can only cook food when you're in a good mood. If the hostess is angry or dissatisfied, it will definitely affect the taste of the food." Mom left this world more than 5 years ago, but her invisible presence Molly felt almost constantly. In the most difficult moments of life, she mentally turned to the only native person, and the image of her mother immediately appeared in front of her eyes. Today, also a deceased parent. Early in the morning, she visited her daughter. She was smiling as always, but the words spoken to her made the girl shudder. "Molly, don't trust those who make sweet promises. Be careful and take care of your son. The young woman pondered over this message from another world. While she was preparing breakfast for herself and her little son, she knew very well that the meaning of these words would be revealed later. It had happened more than once, but the girl never ceased to be amazed at this strange connection with the deceased, the mother, and the surprising truthfulness of her predictions. When it happened for the first time, she thought that on the background of wild stress, she was slowly going crazy to prevent unwanted consequences. Molly recounted verbatim to Wendy the conversations with the calm mother. But the old woman only grinned, "Don't be afraid. It's fate sending you signs through the image of her mother. Such messages should not be ignored." Molly didn't believe the old woman, who was also a very distant relative. "Grandma Wendy, it's all bullshit. I don't believe in all sorts of otherworldly forces and evil doom." Wendy looked at her so that it was her looks. Everything inside went cold. You don't believe and you laugh in vain. It won't be long before you realize what you've been given this gift for, will you? Molly laughed again. "Grandmother, do you consider the voices that trouble me a gift?" "Of course I do. After all, everything you hear comes true later. Almost everything. But it seems like pure coincidence to me. Remember, idiot, nothing in this world happens by chance. Everything has a meaning, but not everyone understands it." Grandma Wendy often said strange things. Many people were afraid of her, but they still went to her for help. Molly looked at the picture of Grandma Faith in the antique frame and sighed, "And Mommy left me. And you, Grandma, left without forgiving 6 too. But thank you for not forgetting, visiting nonetheless. I get only good signs from you, and I try to do good myself." Molly did not have time to finish this pleasant thought, because someone insistently knocked on the window, who came so early. The woman rushed to the door, but did not immediately manage with the shield. The knock was repeated to the landlady. She had to ask the early visitor, "Don't bang so loudly. You'll wake up the baby." The request was heard and the knocking stopped. The young snackar opened the door with difficulty and squeezed into the narrow space. Lucy Guest at once expressed her displeasure. "What are you so long entrenched or hiding? Who in the house from the eyes of strangers?" The visitor looked around, but found nothing suspicious. "I was going to visit you yesterday, but I didn't have time. So many things to do around the house, I have no time for anything. And then there's this damn splinter." The woman nodded at her bandaged palm. "I got it 3 days ago. I thought it was nothing, but it was just a fire burning and twitching inside." Molly asked for a guest. "Aunt Lucy, why don't you sit in the chair and I'll look at your arm?" Lucy lamented about her miserable life. The healer complied with the request, but as soon as the hand sign touched her arm, she cried out, "You be careful, or I might pass out from the pain." "I've had that happen to me before when I pulled a tooth. It took half an hour to pump me out." "Aunt Lucy, but I can't treat you if I can't see the wound." "I'm telling you it's a splinter. There's no wound. I'll unwrap the bandage myself." Kukushkin began to remove the bandage, and Molly did not hold back her exclamation when she saw the woman's palm swollen across the wall into her neck. "Aunt Lucy here, already herbs and lotions cannot help. You need to run to a surgeon immediately, or you may lose a limb." The visitor waved her inflamed palm. "What kind of healer are you if you send me to a doctor? I don't take on anything I'm not sure of. In this case, I doubt conservative methods will help you." Lucy swung his sore arm again. "Look, don't act so smart. You've got all these words and you expect me to believe you. You don't know anything, you're only good at twirling your tail. You can't do anything but twirl your tail around and take advantage of other people's fiancés." Molly knew about the character of this woman, but did not think that Aunt Lucy would allow herself such a prank in someone else's house. Trying to keep calm, she asked the guest, "Why did you come to me, for help or to humiliate? And please don't yell. I have a small child." But these requests could not stop Lucy. She began to denounce the witch doctor for all her sins. "Who are you to make a remark to me? In the old days, people like you were burned at the stake, and rightly so. Don't mess with the people, you charlatan." And the stranger's indignant cries of the visitors were interrupted by a child's crying. Little Zach jumped out in his pajamas and barefoot. He fought with fear and cried, "Mommy, I'm afraid this Aunt Witch will chase her away instead of apologizing." and leaving the stranger's house. Lucy attacked the baby. It wasn't me. Apparently, boy, it's your mama. Let her tell you who she took you from. You can tell who your daddy is without her confession. Sam Jones, the naked eye can detect further mayhem in your home. Molly couldn't stand it. She went at the visitors with determination, although she was much larger than her in stature. Aunt Lucy, leave nicely, or I'll have to use force. Lucy backed down, but she didn't give up. We'll see who's who. I'll tell the police. Let him find out what kind of bird you are and what right you have to occupy this house. And I'll inform your superiors. Who are you really? And they'll broom you out of the poultry farm. You'll be sorry you ever messed with me. Before slamming the door, Molly, as calmly as possible, said Aunt Lucy, you go to the hospital right now. I hear there's a new surgeon there. They say he's very experienced. Instead of thanking her for the sound advice, Lucy launched a stone to slam all the doors shut. Then she muttered curses and headed out. Zach sobbed some more. Molly did her best to calm the baby. She pressed her son to her breast and whispered, "Don't be afraid. Sonny, we are with you. I won't give you to anyone." The mother's caress had a calming effect, and Zach became quiet. Molly continued to rock the baby in her arms, remembering how her mother always found the right words when children's troubles happened to her. Tears did not flow from her eyes. And the young woman silently whispered, "Mommy, how bad it is that you are not with me. We are all alone in this world." In her short life, Molly had experienced loneliness in all its forms. Her first conscious thoughts were related to this unpleasant feeling. But at an early age, she didn't understand why her daddy didn't want to play with her. When her mother was at work, at any request of the girl, the head of the Edwards family rudely replied, "I have no time to entertain you. You have plenty of toys. Go to your room." If Molly did not obey her father's orders, he would push her out the door. When William was particularly angry, he could miscalculate his strength, and his rough touches left bruises on the girl's arms. One day, the mother was worried sick when she saw purple spots on her daughter's hands. "Molly, where did you get that?" The daughter immediately blurted out, "Daddy did it to me." I didn't listen to him, and he got angry when he heard the girl's answer. William was furious. "Molly, who taught you to lie?" Such a little girl is already lying, noticing the wary look of his wife. The man began to explain to her excitedly, "Betty, who do you believe me, or this dog? You know very well that little children are prone to lying. Molly is an overly active little girl and is always bruising herself during her playtime." Betty replied not right away. "See, I might have believed your version if it weren't for one thing: children are more likely to have bruises on their feet. And there are blue spots on the shoulders and arms. And it's hematoma-like in nature. It's not hard to figure out how they got there." Molly remembers well how, at these words of her mother, the father again threw her an angry look. But at the same time, he faintly asked her daughter, "Tell Mommy it's not true. Have I ever hurt you?" The man's question went unanswered because Molly ran off to her room. Already at the age of 5, she knew very well how an honest answer could turn out for her. She drew patterns on the horse glass with her finger until late at night and dreamed of a very different life. Betty, after that egregious incident, also drew the appropriate conclusions. She placed her daughter with friends or acquaintances for the time she was on duty. William did not object to this change, and when Molly returned home, he wryly remarked, "Ours is back. And how is it at other people's aunts' houses?" "Better than at home with Daddy, I guess." Although the girl didn't like the nomadic lifestyle, she answered her father's questions with an affirmative nod of her head. From then on, she stopped seeing William as Molly's father and protector, avoided talking to him at all costs, and tried not to be alone with a man from whom undisguised hatred emanated. Despite the differences between the spouses, the Edwards family was considered exemplary because in those years, above all valued above all material well-being. Neighbors, acquaintances openly envied the couple. Grandmothers in the evenings on the bench at the entrance discussed. Such good, positive people. Both doctors get a decent salary. They have a car. The apartment is also richly furnished. What else do you need for a happy life? This is a question Betty has not found an answer to for many years. Indeed, professionally, she and her husband were doing quite well. She was the head of the environmental department at the city hospital, while her husband held a senior position in a private clinic. His father, who had been a prominent financial official under the socialist system, had provided him with a warm place. The Edwards family was not in need either, although there was no extra money. But for all the apparent prosperity was not the main component of love. Betty and William studied at the same institute, but in different departments. What happens in a student environment? The young people first developed a friendly relationship. Betty was courted by William's friend, who then had an accident. In the most difficult moments, William gave the girl a friendly shoulder. "Betty, you can always count on me. You've lost a loved one, and I've lost my best friend. It seems to me that together you and I will be able to bear this loss more easily." The girl gratefully accepted the guy's words. But their relationship very soon ceased to be friendly. William told the girl Betty more and more insistently every day that you should let go of the past. You can't get your old love back, and you shouldn't dwell on it. You're a young, beautiful woman, and I think it's stupid to condemn yourself to loneliness. Believe me, 5 years will pass, and you will regret that you missed the opportunity to be happy. William made speeches like that almost every day, and Betty gave in. But there was one more thing that made her give in to the guy's entreaties. Soon after the tragic death of her fiancé, she realized that she was expecting a child. But William Edwards reacted positively to this fact. He assured the girl Vetui, "I consider it my duty to take care of my best friend's child. So the sooner you and I formalize the relationship, the better it will be for all of us." This confession completely reassured the girl, and she agreed to become William's wife. But apparently, the groom did not hold back and told his father that his young wife was expecting a child from another man. Edwards Sr. was furious, and without choosing words, began to reproach his son. Only a complete idiot could come up with such an idea. Have you seen any conscientious movies? Voluntarily take responsibility for someone else's child? Well, I'll tell you straight, son, once you've got it on your shoulders, you carry that burden until you get tired of it. But in my house, William has decided to correct his father. Betty's expecting a girl. I don't care, a girl or a boy. I do not wish to see her child in my home and will never acknowledge it. Of course, Molly was not privy to the backstory of its birth, but she did not have the opportunity to learn of her grandparents' love, as her father's parents ignored the fact of its very existence. William himself subsequently repudiated the commitment he had, in a burst of the kindest affection, willingly made before she was born. The truth that she was not his own daughter, Molly learned only after the death of her mother. Betty kept this family secret until her last breath. The sudden departure of her mother was a terrible blow to Molly. After all, Betty had never complained about her health. She ran in the mornings, and on weekends, she did not visit the swimming pool. This resilient woman seemed to have endless energy. Even William often joked about it. "Betty, I'm sorry, but I often think there's a perpetual motion machine inside you. I'm completely exhausted by lunchtime, and there's no mistaking you." On such remarks, Molly's mother answered simply, "William, unlike you, I cannot relax, so I try to always be in tone." The smile disappeared from the woman's face as she added thoughtfully, "It's true that I've been having a lot of headaches lately. The girls took my blood pressure, and it's higher than normal." Molly did not hold back, despite William's presence. "Mom, is it time for you to take a break? You should go to a resort near the sea and have a good rest." The head of the family, with unconcealed irony, exclaimed, "Dreams in you are weakness." "Molly, do you believe in what you're suggesting? Who will let your mom go to this resort? I mean, she's indispensable. She's used to pulling the whole department." Daughter and mother exchanged understanding glances and did not enter into an argument. They knew that such verbal altercations most often end in a heated scandal with insults. Molly locked herself in her room, immersed in reading notes. She too decided to devote herself to medicine, as her mother, and studied at the 3rd year of medical university. That momentous conversation in the kitchen was soon forgotten. Only later, when Mom was gone and the memory involuntarily surfaced moments that Molly had not given importance to before. Subsequently, the girl repeatedly chastised herself for inattention. The alarm beacon didn't work, and when her mother had to call an ambulance to the house. The woman's well-being deteriorated suddenly. She turned pale and grabbed the back of a chair. "Daughter, I don't feel so good." Dial 03. The emergency team arrived just 5 minutes later. The doctor scolded Veta for not caring about her health, and then gave her an injection. After that, the mother felt much better. The head of the household was not at home at the time. Betty asked her daughter not to say anything to him. "Daughter, your mother was just a little tired. So my blood pressure's skyrocketing. Tomorrow morning, I'll call the chief and take a couple of days off." But in the morning, the woman forgot her intention and flew to work. Molly tried to stop her. "Mommy, you were really sick yesterday and you promised to stay home." Betty looked at her watch and answered on the run, "Daughter, let's talk about it later. I'm feeling pretty well today. Wednesday is my surgery day, so I can't just take a vacation. You're a medical student, so you should know that your duty to your patients is more important than a minor ailment." Molly was at a lecture when the cell phone in her jacket pocket. Seeing an unfamiliar number, she felt very anxious and asked to get off. An unfamiliar female voice and dryly informed Molly, "Betty, I've gotten sick after surgery. She's in intensive care now. She's having a stroke. But don't worry. Our doctors will do everything they can." Without hearing the optimistic message, Molly, the head nurse of the environmental unit, ran to the hospital. She spent 3 days in front of the ICU doors, believing in the medic's prognosis. But despite the efforts of the best specialists, Betty passed away without regaining consciousness. She was only 43 years old. Everything that followed was a blur. On the day of her mother's funeral, it was raining heavily, so the ceremony was held in a crumpled manner without any heartwarming speeches. After the cemetery, everyone went to the restaurant, where William decided to organize a wake. Molly refused to take part in this obligatory meal, which caused the anger of her father. And then she decided to stand out. "Think what people will say if you don't show up at the wake." The girl replied in a colorless voice, "I can't get my mom back anyway. I can't eat and drink and watch others fill their wombs. You see, I can't." William swore profanely, then said he didn't want to tell you on a day like this, but you asked for it. "I'm sick of your antics, and I'm not going to put up with them from now on. Mother's gone. You can't count on me." The meaning of these parental words came to the girl later, when she discovered that the refrigerator was completely empty. When her father came home, she told him that they had nothing left but pasta. William looked at her as if he was seeing her for the first time. "Did you forget? I warned you that it's every man for himself now. How old are you? Is that right? Soon to be 20. Mature enough to earn your own food." Molly was stunned by her father's words. "Dad, I have to get my diploma. Go ahead. I don't forbid you, but I don't intend to support you." The man hesitated for a few seconds, and then, looking directly at the girl, in the eyes said, "Mother did not tell you. I didn't want to spoil family relations. The thing is, I'm not your father in the sense of biological connection. Your mom got pregnant by another man who left her. I married her out of pity." It was the second blow that completely broke the young girl. All night she cried at the window, no longer hoping for help. The next morning, Molly did not go to the university because she had to look for a livelihood. She spent several days looking for a suitable job, but found nothing. All the following days were like a terrible dream. Molly woke up in the morning and went to the kitchen to prepare some food from the leftovers, but she quickly ran out of pasta and cereals. There was nothing to satisfy her hunger. This black day just coincided with the day after the funeral of her mother, because she had no one to consult with. The girl went to the cemetery, where she spent the whole day until the evening. She went home only after an old woman who passed by shook her head in sadness. "Grandfather by evening and go home." The deceased don't like to be disturbed at a time like this. Molly thanked the woman and left the cemetery. But another shock awaited her at home. As soon as she opened the apartment door, she saw a strange woman in the hallway wearing her mom's slippers on her feet. Molly's eyes went black, and she screamed, "Get out of here. Don't you dare touch my mom's things." The woman was frightened. From the kitchen came William's voice. "Molly, calm down. I warned you the other day that things would be different in this apartment now. In fact, Although you are registered here, you have no rights to this apartment because you are not a blood relative. The man appeared in the hallway with a frying pan in his hands. But I'm not chasing you away yet. Though things may change if you show your true self, Molly immediately arose. Edwards continued, and now we can move on to introductions. This is Vanessa, my colleague. Please love and welcome. Dinner is almost ready. I hope you haven't forgotten that today is the 9th day. I haven't forgotten. I was at the cemetery. Molly wanted to refuse dinner, but hunger took over and she went to the kitchen. When Edwards graciously invited her to the table, she did not listen to what he was talking about with his colleague, because her thoughts were occupied with solving one question: how to go on living. After the final dinner, William went to see Vanessa off. Molly went to her room, the worries of the last days and her nervous system, and the girl felt incredibly tired. She did not notice how she fell into a heavy, restless sleep. It was then that she had her first dream. Molly's mother did not remember what the late mother said, but in the morning she felt relieved. It was as if she had recovered from a long illness. Another event happened that day that would later change her life. She decided to go out in the morning to look for a job. She was immediately lucky. At the bus stop, she noticed an advertisement that attracted her. A day caregiver for a paralyzed woman was needed. Molly tore off a piece of paper with a phone and immediately dialed the number listed there. She was answered by a young man. Yes, we urgently need a caregiver, preferably with a medical degree. If you meet these 2 requirements, come on over. The man dictated her address and she was about to set off, but accidentally pushed the woman to wait at the bus stop for her bus. Molly hastily apologized, and at that moment she heard someone's voice. This woman is about to back up and get hit by the bus. Help her. Before Molly knew it, the woman she had accidentally hit recently was rushing forward. But she didn't realize her strength. Molly managed to pick her up as she fell. The old lady was in shock. I could have been hit by a car. Thank you, Molly. You saved me. Let me thank you. The woman went through her purse, but Molly absolutely refused to take her money. Good deeds don't require payment. It's not nice that I helped you out of trouble. In high spirits, she went to the address, where she was met by the owner of a pleasant baritone. He helped Molly to take off her cloak, and only then held out his hand to Martin. Molly gave her name. The landlord led her deep into the apartment. The 3 of us live in this big apartment. I have a purely female company, so it is me who has to solve all the problems. My grandmother Lola needs care. My mother and I not so long ago took her from the village, because there she was alone. But apparently, the change of residence did not go in favor of my grandmother. She decided to put us in order, but forgot about her age. As a result of a fall from a stepladder, she suffered a concussion. I don't know much about medicine, but after that injury, Grandma's legs gave out. Her hands are fine, and her speech is almost completely recovered, but she can't walk. Molly assured the young man I can handle it, although I do not have a diploma yet, but with the duties of a caregiver will not be a problem. I'm in my 3rd year of college, but at the moment I have a difficult life situation, so I had to leave the university for the time being. Martin listened attentively to the girl and suggested that Molly explain the reasons for your difficult situation. You don't have to, especially if you find it difficult to talk about it. Martin smiled and pointed to the door in front of which they had stopped. In this room is your future patient. Come in. Moore is looking forward to seeing his assistant. She's very sociable. Lola greeted Molly with a charming smile. What a cute little girl. I promise I won't be cranky and will do everything you tell me to do. My first day as a caregiver flew by. Martin's grandmother was not at all shy of the new person. She was happy to share her memories with Molly and generally acted as if she had known her for a long time. When Molly returned home, she remembered the day's incident at the bus stop and whispered in horror, "How did I not realize it was Mom's voice? Am I really going crazy?" Fear crept into Molly's heart, and she even thought about going to a specialist about the strange voices. But then she changed her mind. Basically, I don't mind the voices. And if I go to a psychiatrist, I may be placed in a closed institution. It's probably just a temporary disorder, and it appeared against the background of severe stress. The most important thing now is to be able to earn a living. With this optimistic thought, the girl fell asleep after the first working day. Soon, Molly regained her former confidence and was happy to wake up in the morning. She hurried to her patient, and they spent the whole day talking. Martin met Molly in the morning and walked her to the bus stop in the evening. He didn't like to talk about himself. Only once he confessed to Grandma that I had wonderful children. But with my mother, we don't have a good relationship. She's always trying to impose things on me that contradict my principles. You know, when I was a child, I dreamed of becoming an adult as soon as possible, to get rid of my mother and their moralizing with Martin. Molly felt free and at ease. She noticed that the young man was also showing interest. Many times the girl caught his long gaze, and it is a mutual sympathy. It did not escape the keen eye. "Lola, you are such a handsome couple. I look at you and can't help but admire you. It's been a month." Molly's ward began to sit up with her help and then stood on her feet. The old woman considered her healing a miracle. "You got me back on my feet. I didn't believe I could walk anymore, but when you appeared, I felt strong. Just the touch of your hand helps." Molly, it was nice to hear the old lady say that, but she didn't pay much attention to it. Meanwhile, her relationship with Martin became more romantic. The young man began to give her flowers. Once he invited her to the movies. After the session, they walked along the waterfront, and Martin uncertainly suggested, "Molly, you could live with us? It would be more convenient for everyone." The girl doubted the correctness of such a decision. "How would your mom feel about it? Are you sure that she will like the constant presence of a stranger in the apartment?" "Honestly, I don't know. She's a very unpredictable person, and she's a little unpredictable." "Then don't make her angry. By the way, she's due back from a business trip any day now. It was her idea to hire a nurse for Grandma. I was totally against it at first. And now? Now I'm glad I listened to Mother. But that's probably the only positive example." Lisa showed up unannounced. Molly was in the bathroom when she heard strange footsteps in the hallway. She shouted loudly to Martin, "We're having a water treatment. Don't come in yet." But the door swung open. "Who's that? Who's making such a racket in here?" Lola answered. "Oh, the traveler's here, and she's not happy as usual. Or a black cat crossed your path on the way home." "Mom, are you always joking?" Lisa went into the room and kissed her mother. Lola was touched by his daughter's attention. "Martin and I have been waiting for you. He had to sit with me for almost 2 weeks, and then he came to us through an ad. This beautiful girl is here. Her name is Molly. She forgot we were going to hire a caregiver," the old lady mumbled. "Now I see who has a short memory." Although at first, Lisa had treated the young caregiver with ostentatious coolness. Over time, their relationship warmed. Martin's mother was particularly impressed by the fact that one day during dinner, Molly confidently told Lisa, "You should not put on pickles because you have diseased kidneys." If I'm not mistaken, the woman dropped the cutlery from her hands and stared at the girl. "How do you know about my kidneys?" Molly made an uncertain gesture with her hand. But she did not answer the question. She realized how her story would be received by the voice. But the hostess was struck by the girl's abilities. She wanted further proof. For this purpose, Lisa invited her friends. The woman even thought of a suitable reason to drink tea in pleasant company. Molly felt uncomfortable surrounded by status ladies and wanted to leave the room of the hostess. But Lisa asked her to. "Molly is scanning my girls. Tell me, what are their hidden ailments?" The girl was dumbfounded. "And I'll tell you later." Well, she hurried to her ward's room and took a long time to come to her senses. The old woman noticed that the girl was distraught. "Molly, what's wrong? Or were you offended by a close call?" "No, everything is fine." Soon the hostess escorted the guests and looked into Lola's room. "Molly, I need to talk to you in confidence." The girl realized that Lisa would ask her for information about the hidden ailments of her friends. But there was nowhere to go. So she told her that one woman had no health problems, just a little nervous. Second, in Molly's opinion, you should get a checkup right away. There's something wrong with her heart. There may be a congenital defect that hasn't been detected yet. It's been a few days. I meet Molly in the hallway in the morning, and the landlady mumbles, "Yes, your prognosis has been confirmed." There is indeed a hidden defect. That's just amazing. Tell me, how do you manage to see what doctors can't see? The girl didn't know what to answer and only shrugged her shoulders. Martin's mother continued to express admiration for the girl's talent. You can make money on it. Such practices are in trend today. Thank you, Lisa, for your advice. My plans do not include shamanism. The hostess shook her lips unhappily. Don't be so sure. Maiden, don't you know what lies ahead? It is possible that your abilities will help you survive one day. Surprisingly, the woman's words proved prophetic. One day, Molly came home, but could not open the door of her apartment because the key did not want to enter the keyhole. The girl threw with irritation. What nonsense, and squeezed the bell button with force. The door was opened by an old acquaintance, Vanessa. She also wrinkled her nose. It's you, Molly. We decided to change the lock. There's a lot of shady people hanging around the entryway. The girl tried to mentally calm herself down, although inside the volcano was rolling without saying a word. She went to her room, but it was a shambles. Molly shouted, "What is this?" Edwards appeared from the bathroom. He wore his robe open, but he wasn't even embarrassed to see his stepdaughter. "Our gypsy has arrived." "What are we yelling?" Molly said. "My room. Why is it such a mess? And why did you change the lock?" William was pleased with the result of his actions, because he managed to break the resistance of this stubborn girl. He'd shown her who was boss in this apartment. Now it remains to enjoy his victory. The man gritted his teeth. "This is no longer your room. My wife Vanessa will now be in charge of this apartment." Molly felt her breath catching. She said in a low voice, "Daddy, how are you? After all, it's only been 3 months since Mom died." Edwards laughed in her face. "I don't care about convention, and don't call me Dad. I hope you're not so dumb that you don't realize you have nothing more to do in this apartment." Vanessa shifted her gaze fearfully from Molly to William. Her well-groomed face was contorted in a grimace of fear. At the peak of passion, Molly again heard her mother's voice, which predicted the impostor's doom. In a ringing voice, she said, "You rejoiced too soon. Mr. Edwards, it is written on your fate to be an eternal widower and your days. You'll end up in an asylum for the mentally ill. Get out of here, witch." William clenched his fists and moved on the girl, but Molly managed to get Yurka out through the open door. About an hour she wandered around the city and only then decided to call Magtip. The young man listened to her and firmly said, "Do not even think. Come to us." There was nowhere to go, and Molly accepted the young man's offer. She did not refuse Magtipu when he made her a marriage proposal. Soon the young people signed and life began to improve little by little. But despite her unique abilities, the girl did not know that the most difficult tests were ahead of her. Zach was cranky in the morning, so Molly was worried about the state of health of her son. Over these few years, she had learned not only to identify diseases almost without error, but also to select the most effective ways of healing. The young woman stretched out her hands and to the mother of little fancies, "Show me where you have a pain." The boy touched his forehead and hummed. Molly touched her lips to the baby's head. "Oh, I think we've forgiven it all a little bit because Zach doesn't listen to Mommy. When it's cold outside, you have to wear a hat. Don't you like hats? That's okay. Now Mommy will give you milk with honey and the cold will run away." The little boy asked in surprise. "It will run away and hide, like that aunt who came to see us yesterday." "Son, are you confused? No one came to our house yesterday." The boy was stubbornly insistent. "My aunt came, and I saw her from the window. She was hiding over there." The boy pointed to the barn. "I wanted to tell her it was wrong to peek, but I couldn't because she ran away." Molly pulled her son close to her and smacked his hot forehead again. "You imagined all this because you're sick. Don't worry, we won't let anyone in with you." The boy echoed, "We won't let anyone in." The young mother went to the kitchen to prepare a warm drink for the child. But at that moment, a shadow flashed outside the window, and Zach shrieked, "Mommy, she's here again." Molly jumped outside and looked around. She clearly felt the presence of a stranger. Grabbing a pitchfork in her hands, the woman went to the barn. "Who's hiding in there? You better come out, or I might hurt unintentionally." For persuasiveness, Molly shipped the pitchfork from the yellowed thickets and weeds. A woman's voice was heard. First, a woman's head emerged from the grass. Then the observant fully marked out in space. Molly exclaimed, "Julia Jones, what are you doing here, and why are you hiding in my yard?" The young woman began to grow diligently. "Hide up the ringleaders. It's the elderly blades of grass wanted to see the witch doctor." Jacob led the space of the yard perplexed look. "And what's so interesting?" Uninvited guests desperately waved her hand. "I'm not interested in your houses. I wanted to look at the boy. Does he really look like my Sam?" "What are you talking about?" Molly realized that Lucy had spread the gossip around the village. She wasn't going to justify herself to that poor woman. A husband who never missed a woman's skirt. Jones continued to rub it in, and the witch doctor looked at her piercingly, minting every word. "My son has a father, and your Sam has nothing to do with his birth." Julia tried to object, but he came to see you several times. "How did you just move in with the woman of faith?" "That's right, but I'm not the one who treated your husband." "How can you blindly believe rumors like that? You're an educated woman, and it's not hard to calculate. When I moved here and when I had Zach, it didn't prove anything." Now doctors are nursing premature babies, Molly impatiently interrupted Julia. "My son was born overweight, so all your suspicions are unfounded." Chasing Lucy and other gossip. "Okay, Julia, I don't have time for this." But Jones wasn't going to leave. "Show me your boy, I want to make sure." This demand angered the young mother. "This isn't a circus or a museum to show off. My child is sick, and I'm not going to disturb him. Go home, Julia, don't make me go to extreme measures." Jones reluctantly headed for the entrance. She turned around several times before leaving the stranger's yard. Molly noticed the woman's bloodless lips moving. She thought regretfully, "It must be clinging to me. And why are people willing to believe any word spoken? Why won't they trust the voice of reason?" After the bread drink, Zach felt better and fell asleep. Molly sat beside the crib, her son immersed in his thoughts. "My little boy, how like your father are you? But I don't want you to turn out to be a scoundrel like him." Molly's marital bliss lasted only 2 months. After their modest wedding with Martin unexpectedly died, Lola and her husband's mother drastically changed her attitude to the young daughter-in-law Lisa. She didn't hesitate to air her grievances with the girl. "It's your fault. Did not save my mommy from death. Left a soothsayer. You're a liar, not a healer." The woman usually made such accusations when Martin wasn't at home. She was afraid of her son's reaction and tried to keep her emotions in check. But everything changed after Martin went on a long business trip. Before he left, he reassured his young wife, Molly. "I'll be gone for a month or 2. Our company is opening a branch in the Sverdlovsk region, and my team will have to provide the technical part. But we have all experienced specialists who are real pros, so we'll manage." In a minimum of time, the young woman had a bad feeling and asked her husband, Martin, "Can't you stay? My heart is troubled." He hugged her affectionately. "Don't fill your head with bad thoughts. We'll be fine, and you can call me anytime." "I will. I'll take you at your word. I'll bore you with my calls every day." The very next day, she dialed her husband's number, but he didn't answer. For a whole week, the young woman tried to contact Martin, but heard only the soulless voice of the answering machine. Call her out. Call back later. Then she was told that such a number did not exist at all. She could only hope that Martin would call her himself. But as the days went by, her cell phone gave no sign of life except total incomprehension. What had happened to Martin? Worrying was her mother-in-law's attitude. She became irritable and rebuked her daughter-in-law for the slightest misstep. Subsequently, Martin's mother began to ignore her daughter-in-law's presence. As soon as Molly showed up in the kitchen, Lisa would defiantly leave, emphasizing with her behavior that she did not want to talk to her. This went on for about a week. Molly sensed that a storm was brewing, and she wasn't wrong. One evening, Lisa didn't come home in an agitated state, and from the doorstep began to shout, "Molly, where are you? Come here. There is a serious conversation." The girl had to obey her mother-in-law's demand. She went out into the hallway and immediately smelled the odor of booze. This fact shocked the girl, because Lisa was very careful about her health. She always refused wine, even on holidays. Noticing that the daughter-in-law wrinkled Mother Martin, critically remarked that she did not like it. I don't like a lot of things either, but I have to put up with it. For example, your presence in this house pisses me off. Tell me how long you're going to sit here waiting for who knows what. Lissa, why are you doing this? I'm waiting for Martin. He's my lawfully wedded husband. The woman burst out laughing. He had a platoon of wives like that before him. Do you really believe in fairy tales? My son is not your type. That's not the kind of wife he wants. Let him decide what kind of wife he wants. The mother-in-law came so close that the girl felt her breath on her face. Listen to me, beautiful. Has it not yet reached your native brains that Martin regrets his hasty wife, and that's why he doesn't answer you? By the way, he called me the day before yesterday. Told me he's gonna be delayed another month. Molly held her breath. Lisa, he asked about me. He did. He wondered if you moved out of this apartment yet. I'd really like to hear the answer to that question too, because your presence in this house really annoys me. What are you here for, anyway? Your services are not needed. And if you're going to live on someone else's dime, that's not gonna work. So find an apartment. And the sooner you do it, the better. I'll even give you some money. Given your hopeless situation, go to your relatives. After all, you have aunties and grandmothers. Lisa took out 2 bills of the highest denomination. I hope you and I understand each other. There was a hammer pounding in her head, and the sound made her very dizzy. Molly began to hastily gather her things. Before her eyes flashed the face of her mother-in-law, distorted with hatred, and in her ears those nasty dots. Her words sounded, "Look for an apartment. That's not the kind of wife my son needs." Martin called to me, smearing tears and despair on her cheeks. A young woman whispered to her. He called me because he was afraid, and I was such a knave fool. I wanted to make them happy with the news that we were having a baby. Molly had only recently found out she was pregnant, but she had been hesitant to tell her mother-in-law. It's okay, I'll be fine on my own. We don't need anyone. In that critical situation, she felt for the first time united with her unborn child. Trying not to make any noise, she left her husband's apartment and headed for the train station. She already knew that she would buy a ticket to Native Village. Wendy wouldn't chase me away. I have nowhere else to go. Just the day after Molly arrived at the village across the creek, news spread throughout the neighborhood that a distant relative had settled in. Wendy treated people with herbs, but she selected the formulas based solely on the complaints of visitors. The old lady's granddaughter had different diagnostic methods. Molly could identify a diseased organ with a touch of her hand. Over time, she learned to control her unique abilities and the accuracy of her diagnosis. Amazed even medics, who sometimes turned to her for help. But the popularity of the young witch doctor did not many became across the throat. Questionable activities of a young woman attracted the attention and representatives of law enforcement. One day, Molly visited the district police officer and advised you to get a job, because people are different. They say I have no complaints against you. Live as you like, but I have to respond to complaints. Go to the poultry farm. There's always a shortage of labor there. Molly thanked the district officer for his advice and was soon on the payroll. While Wendy was alive, she worked in shifts. But after the death of a relative, the question of where to put the child came up. And here again, kind people helped. The company allocated a place in a kindergarten for a single mom. It remained only to rejoice in life. Envious, ill-wishers have already hatched a plan of revenge. Strangers who dared to break the established order in their promised corner. No sooner had Julia Jones left the house. The healer, as she noticed not in the distance painfully familiar male figure out of rage. The woman whispered, "Oh, you ghastly," to this Vedi me poured, but nothing, I'll arrange you. Love comforts together will be on a hot griddle tumbling, trying not to give away his presence. My jealousy is unbearable. Woman, sneaked into her house. The children rushed to her with questions. Mom, where have you been? Dad came to ask for you, and we don't know what to say. Julia automatically asked her daughter, and where is Daddy now? Where is he? He went to work. He just left without waiting for you. His car broke down. It needs to be repaired. I made him some sandwiches because Daddy said he'd be late. The woman listened to her daughter, and in her head a plan of revenge was already brewing. She muttered, "It's a good thing Daddy will be back late." The daughter looked at her mother in surprise. "Mom, you seem strange today. You're scolding Daddy for being in the workshops all day, but you're saying it's a good thing." Julia whispered at her daughter and went about her chores. She could hardly wait until evening when it was quite dark. The woman slipped out of the house. She brought her bag with her, which she tried to carry very carefully. She stepped carefully past the Negros houses and disappeared into the night. All day long, Molly had not gotten the visits of Julia Jones out of her mind either. "I still don't understand why that woman came. And she was behaving strangely. Can jealousy turn a mother of two into such a hunted creature? It's just an unsubstantiated rumor. I've only seen that Sam a few times, and that was in public after dinner. A woman was about to do laundry, but the old lady next door came in. 'Molly, baby, look at my leg. You've got eyes like x-rays.' The old woman was leaning on a crooked branch and barely had a ferret, so she sat her down on a stool. 'And where did you get it?' The old woman began to wail. 'She's getting old. Her eyes are failing. She was doing her chores at home. Diana hit a corner. It hurts like hell. I wish it wasn't broken. I'd be dead.' Kelly, like many old people in the village, had no relatives. Well, they had relatives, but they lived far away. Therefore, any illness, or even a minor injury for such people seemed a disaster. The healer tried to calm the grandmother. 'You still live to 100 years. You don't have a fracture, but you were wrong. I'm going to give you a little treatment.' Molly took a jar of herbal ointment out of the cupboard and applied the composition liberally to the bruised long areas. Then she put a bandage on her leg. 'That's it. You'll feel better soon.' Kelly began to thank the woman. 'You have a good heart to help people. God bless you.' The old woman took a jar of ointment and, leaning on a stick, headed for the entrance. 'Kelly, let me walk you out.' Molly drove her patient almost to the house and then returned. Until late in the afternoon, she did her housework. The uneasiness that had appeared in the afternoon did not go away. This unpleasant feeling only grew stronger by the minute, and the woman tried to understand the reason for its appearance, but her thoughts each time returned to the morning incident. She put Zach to bed and was about to go to bed herself. Suddenly, the image of her mother appeared very clearly before her eyes. 'Don't sleep, daughter. You can't sleep.' Molly ran her hands over her face, as if trying to remove the obsession, but it didn't help. Then the woman went to the window. She wanted to open the window a little to let in some fresh air, but at that moment, a column of flame erupted from the side. Not yet realizing what had happened, the young woman rushed to the crib. She managed to jump out into the street when Baba Faith's flimsy house was completely engulfed in flames. Zach cradled her mother's skinny body. 'Mommy, I'm scared.' 'Don't be afraid, son, I'm with you.' Instead of fire people ran away, but mostly it was old people who couldn't help. When the firemen arrived, the home village was just a smoking ruin. Molly stood at a loss, not knowing what to do. Elderly Gawkers had already managed to scatter to their homes, and no one cared about the young mother with a baby in her arms. She tucked her son into the blanket and wandered off to meet the dispersing. Mused dawned. Jacob disliked night duty to the point of toothache, but he disliked middle-of-the-night calls even more. This night, he wasn't destined to enjoy pleasant visions either. Because in the morning, the phone was ringing off the hook. It was the duty nurse from the emergency room. 'Jacob, urgently need your consultation.' Jacob grumbled unhappily. 'Is something burning?' 'You couldn't wait until morning.' The girl grinned. 'There was a fire today, but not at our place. Someone's house burned down across the river, but there were no casualties. Who'd want to come in the middle of the night? A woman from around here. It's a bad situation with her arm.' 'All right, I'll be right there. Get a small or ready just in case.' 'I'm all set.' I could hear a woman crying on the phone. Jacob said in his heart, 'They take it to the extreme and then they cry. What kind of people?' The man quickly dressed and jumped outside. The morning fog completely enveloped the small town. The sight was stunning, but Jacob had no time to admire the beautiful scenery. Duty was calling him. He hurried towards the hospital, not expecting to meet anyone on the deserted street. Suddenly, he noticed in the square near the hospital an incomprehensible movement. At first, Jacob wanted to run past this suspicious object, but heard a child crying. The man thought with irritation that people can't sleep. They're dragging children with them. He came closer and only then realized that the object of his concern was a young woman with a baby in her arms. Jacob asked if you were in trouble. The voice replied yes. Our house burned down and my son and I are now left on the street. Jacob remembered the conversation with the nurse from the emergency room. So you're the burned out people from across the river? Do you have any acquaintances or relatives? No one, and everything burned down. I didn't even have time to bring my papers. What am I going to do with you? I don't have time to arrange anything for you. The man thought for a second, but then he exclaimed happily, I don't remember your name. Sweet young lady, but here's a solution to your problem. I'll give you the keys to the house where I live. It's not far from here, near the store. You'll wait for me. Then we'll figure out what to do together. Unfortunately, I can't spare your time right now because I'm in a hurry to go to surgery. Jacob gave the young woman the keys and headed toward the hospital. Lucy sat on the couch in the emergency room and rocked her growing arm like a child. The woman's condition was worsening by the hour, and the swelling had spread all the way to her shoulder. Lucy was crying her eyes out. Why didn't I listen? She told me the day before yesterday to run to the hospital, and I didn't listen. Now I'm gonna die. In the prime of life, Jacob heard the last words of the woman and cheerfully said, do not even dream. We will not let you die. We will save you now. Lucy tried to rise from the couch, but the wild pain nailed her to the seat. I'm not the one who can't stand my hanging cats anymore. You're the one who's going to cut my arm. Jacob patted the woman on the shoulder. We'll look at your arm first and then decide what to do. Cutting something off isn't a problem, so we'll figure out how to avoid losing it. Hey guys, help a woman to the dressing room. This request was addressed to the duty shift of the emergency room. A young nurse together with an orderly picked up Lucy from both sides, and the patient began to wail even louder. Why didn't I listen? She warned me. Jacob inquired. You're always talking about some kind of witch doctor. If I understand you correctly, you have been treated with folk methods before. No doctor didn't. I had that damn splinter in me over 2 weeks ago. Everything was fine. And then my palm started to swell up and I couldn't save it. I went to a witch doctor across the river. She lives as a nurse, interrupted a patient. Jenya has a house. Bauki faith this night burned down. Lucy, the palm of her healthy hand covered her mouth. My mother is a woman. Apparently put down the young witch doctor. Jacob is already a little accustomed to the local lingo, and you have suspicions about it? Lucy shook his head. Maybe I do, but I won't. Why are you slandering people for nothing? The nurse noticed. You be right. I have never believed in all sorts of things, and I have never gone to a witch doctor. It's safer and safer to go to a certified specialist. Jacob looked at the girl carefully. You're wrong. You can't deny the possibility of unconventional practices. I too, in my youth, I thought all this quackery, but then myself got into trouble and saved me a local uncle with a tambourine Jacob and removed from the hand Lucy and bandage and shook his head. Oh, you got your arm all messed up. We'll have to operate. Having calmed down, it was. Lucy started wailing loudly again. Doctor, I can't bear the pain. I assure you, you won't even feel it, because we'll give you an injection. Within an hour, the operation was over. Am I alive, or am I dreaming? Jacob was cheering up the patient. It's okay, and you're still on the ground. But you're going to have to stay with us for a few days because there could be complications. We're treating you. Then you'll go home, a promise that soothed the pain-stricken woman. I'd do anything to save my arm. The nurse on duty began to register the patient for inpatient treatment. Jacob looked at his watch. Wow, it's 8:30. Time to go to work. The surgeon was already heading to his department, but suddenly remembered about the girl who had the keys to the house. He asked the nurse, if you don't mind, tell mine that I'll be a little late for half an hour, no more. Of course, Jacob will run home, Have some tea after such a restless night. It is not a sin to rest. Jacob hurried home because he didn't like to be late for work. He didn't consider night duty an excuse and hoped to be home in time for the general hospital meeting. The door of the house was open, and the man, trying not to make any noise, made his way into the large room. His guests were asleep on the couch, and he was able to get a good look at their facial features. A young woman suddenly gleamed something, and the man shifted his gaze to the nightstand and was stunned. He saw the woman's jewelry, a small pendant in the form of a locket. There was no way this thing was in this girl's possession. Jacob touched the young woman's hand, and Molly opened her eyes with difficulty. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize I'd fallen asleep." The man had already completely mastered himself, "And I just want to ask you one question. Tell me, where did you get this pendant?" The girl said sadly, "It was my mother's jewelry. It's the only thing I have in memory of her." Jacob felt his mouth dry with excitement in his voice. He asked, "Your mom's name by chance Betty?" The girl fluttered her eyelashes in surprise. "Yes, Edward's Betty." He couldn't hold back his emotions any longer. "Edwards? So it was you? So she tricked me then. But why?" Molly looked fearfully at the man, who had his arms wrapped around his head in despair. She did not understand anything, but was afraid to question this man. Terrible fear for herself and her son again. Sticky paws touched her heart. "Perhaps we better leave." Molly began to wake her son. "Zach, wake up, sweetheart." Jacob sank down on the couch without strength. "Oh, you have to leave?" "My daughter, stay here. This is your home now. I have so much to tell you, but I have to get my thoughts together." Jacob had completely forgotten his duty as a doctor. He sat on the couch and could not take his eyes off the night guest who had come into his life so unexpectedly. Zach looked at the adults and didn't understand what was happening to them. He looked at his mother, then at the owner of the house. "You're my grandfather." The stupor fell away. And Jacob confidently answered, "Yes, little boy." He cradled the boy against him and clutched him. Eyes too stingy, male tears rolled down his cheeks. But Jacob was not embarrassed by these tears because they were tears of happiness. Episodes from the past often surfaced in Jacob's mind. But for more than a quarter of a century, he had diligently banished them. Once he had already drawn the final line beyond which his past remained. And he never wanted to go back there again. But the appearance of a young witch doctor with a baby made the man change his principles. And for the first time in many years, he allowed himself to return to the place where his youthful dreams and first love remained. With William Edwards. They had been friends since first grade, and this friendship was approved by both boys' parents and teachers. Because Jacob possessed the qualities of a leader, and William tried to imitate him in everything, so their relationship often resembled a competition. But until the time of endless dueling did not tolerate serious disagreements. Only sometimes William would wistfully remark, "Jacob, you're a real lucky man. No matter how hard I try, I can't do it." His comrade answered him everything, because you try to repeat after others, showing your individual qualities, and immediately feel different. Jacob tried to follow his friend's advice, but he still did not succeed. Around the 9th grade, he decided to succeed in another way. He started spreading rumors about him behind his friend's back. When Jacob realized who was the source of the gossip, he gave his friend his first warning. "Look, William, this is not manly. If it happens again, you can forget you have a friend." Edwards was quiet for a while, but jealousy lurked beneath the boy's heart. Despite the fact that relations between friends cooled a little, William also applied to medical school. Surprisingly, but both guys got in at the first go. Jacob took the event with reserve. Edwards, on the other hand, was triumphant. "You and I are destined to be together for life. I can already imagine how you and I will become surgeons and work in a good clinic." Jacob decided to tease his comrade, but district hospitals are not a prospect for an aspiring doctor. "Edwards, I don't get it." Jokes waved 2 hands, did not get burned at once. "This is definitely not for me. My daddy won't let his only son miss out somewhere in the middle of nowhere." Jacob, in a constructive tone, said a real doctor must go through all the stages of formation. Only then can he become a true professional. Although William disagreed, he did not argue with his comrade. The silent man swallowed his resentment when Jacob, not him, had been elected the head of the group at the general meeting. The appearance of a favorite girl in the life of a friend's friend was the most stressful for the jealous. Betty was getting a lot of attention from a lot of guys, but she only let herself be courted by Jacob. William secretly suffered because he also liked this girl. After Jacob started dating Betty and Jacob was basically left out. Then he remembered the old and already personally proven method of gossip. But having learned from bitter experience, the boy was now acting smarter. He acted very carefully and mostly through third parties. Therefore, it was almost impossible to identify the source. Thanks to the efforts of William at the university, spread rumors that Jacob likes to drink and booze. Such behavior of the university administration could not leave without attention. Jacob was summoned to the dean's office and reprimanded in full form. He was given a warning. Keep in mind, Jacob, one more such signal, and you can take away your documents. No matter how much the guy tried to slander, to justify himself, no one wanted to listen to him, although he guessed who was the culprit of his troubles. There was no proof. In order to completely eliminate problems in the future, Jacob terminated all relations with Edwards. He even rented a room so that he wouldn't have to face the envious students in the dormitory. But William was not deterred. He decided to come in from the other flank, namely to make his accomplices and his friend's girlfriend. But Betty quickly figured him out. Look, William, you've got the wrong girl. I'm used to believing only the facts, so you're not going to get away with this. Don't waste your time. Do something useful. Take up ballroom dancing or go to the library. No girl had ever humiliated William in such a way, but the narcissistic young man didn't know how to take revenge on those who made him suffer. The opportunity came unexpectedly, approached the end of studies, and every future medic made plans for life. Before receiving their diplomas, the graduates were offered a little work in the organization of the Red Cross. The first to sign up was Edwards. He excitedly told his classmates about the prospects of participating in the mission. Guys, this is a great launching pad. A knowledgeable person assured me that later all participants would be given special certificates. And in general, to visit abroad for free. It's the limit of dreams. Many alumni took the bait. Jacob was one of them. Only he had a very different agenda. He thought the peacekeeping mission would give him a chance to gain useful experience as an aspiring surgeon. When Betty found out Jacob was going to Africa, she was shocked. Jacob, do you realize how serious this is? It's very dangerous. Boyfriend to girlfriend. He won't send us somewhere too hot. I've already found out our group is going to one of the poorest countries. We'll take vaccines and necessary medical supplies there to provide medical care to the people. As soon as I get back, you and I will definitely cut the wedding short. Why didn't you tell me before? I would have gone with you too. There's nothing for girls to do there. So there's still danger, and you're lying to me. Betty, you know there's danger everywhere. Even crossing the road is scary because not everyone follows the rules. There were 17 people in their group, and they put Edwards in charge. This was William's finest hour. He gave out commands left and right, which caused laughter and obscene jokes. Upon arrival at their destination, the future doctors immediately began to work Jacob, and 2 other guys were sent to remote settlements. But they did not reach the place. On the way to the settlement, they were ambushed. 1 guy was killed, and Jacob was seriously wounded. All the valuable cargo was taken by local bandits. They also tied up the 3rd boy and took him with them. Scraps of their conversations, Jacob realized that the bandits were going to get a ransom for the prisoner. That terrible day he remembered for the rest of his life. He was bleeding on the road with no hope of rescue. Gathering his last strength, Jacob gave himself first aid, which helped to stop the bleeding. After that, he lost consciousness. He woke up in a dwelling resembling a tent. People were discussing quietly and pointing at him. Soon a short man in brightly colored rags jumped up. He began to examine Jacob's wound and at the same time loudly faltered his tongue. The boy realized that his affairs were not good at all. After examining the local shaman, Jacob ate some potions, and he fell into unconsciousness. He lost track of the days, so he did not know how much time had passed since his disappearance. When he became quite well, 2 men from the tribe put him on some kind of battery and took him to the nearest town. There he learned that he had been a guest of the local tribe for 3 whole months. He was also told that he had been presumed dead for all those months. It was a real shock. Jacob was afraid to even imagine the upcoming meeting with his fiancée. But everything turned out to be obscenely trivial. Betty did not faint, but only slightly pale. And then the most amazing thing happened. His fiancée was not happy, but on the contrary, began to reproach him that he had not found a way to inform her that he was alive and well. "And I believed you, and you turned out to be like this." She didn't get a chance to say who he really was. Because the final scene was the appearance of William Edwards. Jacob pulled his eyes out. "What are you doing here?" William gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "I'm glad you're alive. Honestly, very glad. But sorry, old boy, things have changed while you've been traveling in Africa. Betty and I got married last week. It was a beautiful wedding. Too bad you didn't get a chance to have any fun." Jacob didn't remember how he got to the apartment he and Betty had rented before the upcoming wedding. His thoughts were all jumbled up in his head. And at that moment, he wanted more than anything to drink himself into unconsciousness. The only person who was willing to give him a shoulder to lean on was Andrew. "Hang in there, Jacob. You are a man and must be ready for any trials." The next day, Jacob left town, where his first love and his dashed hopes for happiness remained. Molly looked at the man who was telling her such incredible things. "I gave this pendant to your mother after our first serious, if I may say so, meeting. The only thing I don't understand is, why didn't she tell me?" Molly shook her head. "What makes you so sure I'm not William's daughter?" Jacob found the strength to laugh. "I'll show you one picture now, and you'll understand everything yourself." He put Zach, who had already climbed into his lap, on the floor and opened the closet. He searched for something for a long time, finally handed her the picture. Zach looked in and smiled. "You poked your finger and said, 'That's me, Mom,' when we took the picture. And that's the jacket I don't remember." Molly was afraid to believe it. She could feel the tears coming out of her eyes. "So we are not alone in this world, that we have someone else." Jacob smiled. "Not just anyone, my father and grandfather. By the way, quite a successful surgeon at your hospital." Molly looked at him confused. "What are we all going to do now?" Jacob looked at his watch. "So that's how I'm going to work. I'm sorry to leave you, but now we'll definitely have time to talk. Then I'll take some time off, and we'll be sure to get back to the paperwork and the fire investigation. Anything you can find here is at your disposal. You don't miss me, do you? I'll try to get out in time." He moved toward the door, then stopped, smiled. "I have a very strange feeling right now. I'm basically all alone in this world already, and now I have a family. It's so unusual, so strange, but very joyful." Jacob came out Molly, spinning around the house and holding Zach in her arms. "Zach, we have a daddy, and you have a grandfather. You know, he didn't leave anyone behind. It was all this one." Molly furrowed her brow. She already knew that William's new wife had been hit by a car, and now her ex-father was grooming a new woman. But nothing, as long as the rope didn't twist. That voice forced. Molly grinned. Her mom had never fooled her. By some coincidence. In the afternoon, the chief of the local police department had been admitted with a trivial appendicitis. He kept wiping sweat from his forehead. Jacob asked, "Why are you so nervous?" "By virtue of your profession, it seems to me that you have come face to face with criminals more than once." The man grinned unhappily. "Jacob, I know what to expect from a criminal. I can anticipate what's going to happen. But I'll be sleeping here, if I understand correctly. So I won't be able to influence the course of events." Jacob looked at him with interest. "That's an interesting point of view, but you can't be so distrustful of those around you. Maybe that's what I learned there." Jacob immediately understood what the man was talking about. "But if you have more trust." "I was there too, but not for long. Our supply train was ambushed. One doctor was killed. I was badly wounded, so the bandits assumed I was dead. But they took one young doctor kid with them. I guess they wanted a ransom. I never found out anything about him. They just told me not to go where I didn't want to go." The chief of police held out his hand. "Leo, believe it or not, but I feel a lot better now. I trust you." The operation went quickly and without complications. 2 hours later, Leo woke up in his room. His consciousness was still hazy, but he could hear someone talking not far from him. "Leo, the jokes are over. You were saved this time, but the next ones might not make it. Leo's in the room with you now. As soon as he feels better, I'll be sure to ask him to send you for treatment." "What are you talking about? I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a free man." At the same second, there was a slap, and a man's voice said, "Oh, I'm Leo. I'm telling you quite seriously." Leo grinned to himself. Wow, they're already scaring grown men with it. When breathing became easier, and he could even get out of bed, Leo called his old friend. "I have a case. Remember that medical supply wagon that was ambushed? A man from that convoy operated on me yesterday. I realize that the case is long closed, but I remember you talking about wanting to dig privately." The police chief listened for about 5 minutes, then nodded his head. "It's a deal. Call me to meet you." Jacob first wanted to run home, but then realized that you cannot come empty-handed to his grandson, or his daughter either. This is all so unusual. Grandson, daughter. Even the language. Even his brain was cautiously saying these words, as if afraid that everything would turn out to be untrue. He drove to the largest mall in the city. Jacob quietly opened the door of the house. Who knows, maybe Zach is asleep. But no, Zach was not only awake. He seemed to be waiting for him, because he immediately rushed over to him. Jacob threw all the bags on the floor and picked up his grandson, who clung to him trustingly. Molly looked around at the purchases. "Oh, did you guys clean out the store? Let's make a deal. No kick out. I realize it's hard for you to call me Dad right away, but I hope that moment will come someday." Molly nodded her head in embarrassment. "I'll try." Jacob set Zach on the floor and commanded, "Let's take it apart." "I hope I got the dimensions right." Molly shook her head. "Dinner first. Everything else later." Zach had eaten everything the fastest and was now looking longingly at the brightly colored box that peeked out from the pile of bags. There was obviously something very interesting in there, and obviously for him. Molly smiled as she looked at her son. She understood what he was going through. "Thank you, Molly. I can't remember the last time I had anything other than sandwiches and wheat when I got home from work." "Well, now it's on." Jacob sat on the couch and watched Zach's already calm demeanor. The big machine. The kid's eyes were burning. He hadn't parted with it all evening and then into bed. Molly had barely taken the machine out of his hands when he was already asleep. Jacob was drinking coffee, waiting for his daughter. They had so much to discuss. Molly had just entered the room when there was a knock on the door. Jacob wondered what it was like to be brought in at this hour. He usually got a call from the hospital. Standing on the doorstep was a grim Sam Jones. Molly immediately frowned. Why did he come to apologize? "You fool, she told me everything. She's crying to me. She's afraid that she'll go to jail, but she won't." Molly turned away, signaling that the conversation was over. But Sam wasn't going to leave. He sat down on a chair and spoke. "I don't know how I'm going to live my life, and my jealousy. I would have left a long time ago, but this way she'll take it out on the kids." Molly turned to him. "Is it your fault she's so jealous of you?" Sam raised his head at her. "But I didn't do anything wrong." "Yes, you did. You just don't notice it. But she does, and she sees that you're worse off at home than you are at work. Think about what I said if you want to keep your family together." Sam sat for another 5 minutes, then got up, put a thick wad of money on the table. "Molly, no offense to you. I realize you can't buy a house with this money, but you're all out of stuff." Sam left, and Jacob looked at his daughter in surprise. "And I don't understand everything now. Did he set your house on fire?" "No. His wife is our village gossip. So we should go to the police." "No need to go to the police. She's already punished herself. It's not her fault. She's just stupid and listens to nonsense." Jacob shook his head. "You are just like your mother, always for justice, for good justice. Tell me how you ended up in the village. It's a long story of a lifetime." Molly poured herself some tea and sat down in front of her father. They talked half the night. Jacob was indignant several times and said he should be nailed. First it was William, and then Martin. Looking at his watch, Jacob said 2 hours and go to bed. I'll stay up a little longer. He went outside, breathing in more air. If things hadn't worked out this way then and now, things would be different. Leo, having learned what problems Jacob has in the family, immediately said, today go to the office. They will take care of your documents. I'll call. Everything will be done quickly, in a week. Molly looked at the new passport with a smile. Well, it's a thing to celebrate. I have to work tomorrow. I'm out of vacation time. Molly began to set the table. But then there was a knock at the door. Yes, come in. On the doorstep stood a strange man a little older than Jacob. There was something about the man's gaze that was so forgotten yet familiar. Good evening. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm a friend of Leo's. I very much like to talk to you, Jacob. Well, come in. No, if you don't mind, let's go for a walk. Your daughter doesn't need to hear our conversation. Jacob looked at Molly confused, but put on his jacket. They got out and walked to the river. The thing is, the guy who was taken prisoner is a very good friend of mine. You know, there were so many investigations, but nobody dug up anything. I'm retired from the force, but now I'm in private practice, and I can afford to get back into the business when Jacob came back. Molly looked at him questioningly. He only said that. It's about our service. And William, he was there too, wasn't he? But to be honest, I was hurt right away. I was treated by a shaman for a long time, so I don't really know anything. And I don't want to. I'm gonna have to go back to those times again. I feel it. The next day, Molly and Zach went to the local store. As luck would have it, Lucy was in the store at the time. Zach, as soon as he saw her, clung to his mother. And Lucy, who was just about to leave, dropped her bag on the floor. Oh, who's come to the store? Not like for food. What about frogs, whose legs and all? She laughed at her own joke. Molly let go of her son's hand and moved in on her. Why do you have so much venom in you? Don't you realize you're poisoning yourself with it? Julia's been spilling all kinds of shit. And now she's going to jail. And if we were asleep, what sin would be on your soul? Lucy retreated fearfully. What are you waiting for? That I didn't do anything. In fact, I can say what I want to say, and who to believe and what to do is everyone's business. Lucy picked up her bag and headed for the door. Molly just said, "Are you watching what you say? You're sick with anger and venom." Lucy jumped outside, and already from there her threats and curses were heard. Molly smiled sweetly and turned to the saleswoman. Now Molly felt neither fear nor loneliness. She directly physically felt that she had protection behind her. Her father. The clerk looked at Molly fearfully. Their store was on the outskirts of town. You could say it was the end of the town, so everyone knew each other. She'd heard about Molly too. That evening, her father said to Molly, "I need to go to my hometown. Would you like to buy something?" Molly thought it would be a good idea to go out. Zach had prepared for the trip extensively. Molly and Jacob almost died laughing. When you saw the backpack he packed, "No, Zach, that's no good. We can't take that much stuff for him. Zach's right behind the sniffles." "But I need all this stuff." Jacob sat down in front of him. "Well, then we won't be able to buy you anything, because we'll have nowhere to put it." The boy thought for a moment, then quickly began to free his backpack. At the train station, they were met by the same man who had once come to them. "Jacob, I will say at once that your story helped me a lot. Some facts became a real missing link. Unfortunately, a friend of mine was killed when he was captured and ransomed. He escaped, but he died in the escape. Now we know who it was that set the enemies upon your wagon." Jacob stretched thoughtfully. "So I thought they were waiting for us there for a reason." "No, not for nothing. This is a man you know well." And Jacob stared at the man in surprise. "You are. This is your boyhood friend, William Edwards." "No, it can't be." "Yes, he's not a very nice man, but what would it be?" "There was a lot of money at stake. Jacob, I realize that now the puzzle is finally coming together. And if it was William, then everything was falling into place." An hour later, they were leaving the investigative committee, where Jacob and William had a confrontation. William was crying tears, apologizing to Jacob and Molly. The man caught up with them on the street. handed Molly the keys. "Take these keys to the apartment. Are you still registered there? He won't need them for the next 10 years. They were silent for a while. Then Jacob decisively said, "Let's go to a cafe or a restaurant. We should celebrate." They sat down at a table by the window. Molly smiled because Zach was asking 1,000 questions. Why here? As in a fairy tale. Molly. The young woman flinched, looked up, and saw Martin. Zach immediately felt his mother tense up, pressed himself against her and froze, looking at the stranger. Martin looked at his wife with surprise. Of course, the formerly beloved wife. Strange, had she then exchanged him for this man who was old enough to be her father? And this child, judging by its age, she'd gotten pregnant as soon as she'd run away from him. Martin was still grateful to his mother for being able to open his eyes. True, he hadn't married again yet, despite his mother's best efforts. "Hello, Martin." She wanted to hide so she wouldn't see the traitor's face. She didn't know or understand how she felt about this man, but she knew she didn't want to see him. "How are you doing, Molly?" Martin looked mockingly at Jacob. "I guess that's what happiness is to you." "I am happy, Martin. I hope you're not suffering in your happy life, too. What kind of hypocrites are you? I believed you were pure, that you love me." Molly raised her eyebrows in surprise. Then she stood up. "You're the one calling me, you hypocrite. You've gone off to have fun. You couldn't even tell me yourself that you were fed up with me and asked your mother to kick me out. And then you call me a hypocrite." Martin even took a step back under Molly's pressure. "Kicked you out where? What are you talking about? You just decided to justify yourself." She turned around and sat back down. Martin wanted to say something else, but Jacob stood in front of him, a young man. "Would you please leave us? My daughter doesn't want to talk to you, and my grandson is afraid of you." Martin cast one last glance at Lisa and quickly moved toward the exit. Now he wanted to get to his mother and ask some questions. Molly was silent for a long time, then raised her eyes to Jacob. "He asked, I take it that this is Zach's father." "Yes, Dad. I've seen his face somewhere, but I can't remember. He's a biochemist. He seems pretty good. Maybe even accomplished something." Jacob slapped himself on the forehead. "That's right. I read his article. I thought he was very knowledgeable." Meanwhile, Martin was carrying everything back to his mother after Molly left him. He came back and moved out on Mom. True, she was adamantly opposed to it, but that didn't bother him much. He'd rather have her bothering him about nothing. But it was unbearable to live with her. "Mom." Lisa came out of the room. "Martin, why are you screaming like a victim?" "Mom, we need to talk. What we need to talk about." "What could be so important?" "That you went to visit your mother and saw Molly." The woman shuddered, then quite indifferently said, "I'm glad, and I had nothing to do with it." "Mother, tell me how Molly left me, and who she left with." Lisa jerked her shoulder. "God, I've got nothing better to do. Only how to keep in your head such nonsense will you run." Martin stood in front of his mother. "Mom, the jokes are over. I saw Molly, I saw her son, who could be my age. She doesn't have a wedding ring, she doesn't look like a walking woman. Which makes me think you have something to tell me." Lisa. Somehow she looked at her son at once. She had never seen him in such a state. Jacob and his family returned home in the late afternoon. The day had been so full that Zach had long since fallen asleep in his grandfather's arms. "Molly, you go to bed. I'm on duty tomorrow too." "Yes, Dad, you go. I'll do all the work here myself." Molly looked at the shopping pile. Zach's grandfather's budget had been shaken up pretty badly today. He didn't ask for anything, by the way, just stared with huge eyes at anything. And Grandpa's already running out to buy it. It's time to go back to work at the daycare center. There was a quiet knock on the window. Molly looked out and saw Julia, the same one who had set her house on fire. Sighing, she threw on her sweater and went outside. Julia immediately threw herself at her feet. "Molly, I'm so sorry. I don't know how it all happened, as if someone was pushing me. I've done something that I don't know how to live." Sam is embarrassing to look at in front of the kids. "Calm down, you're rereading. No one died at the funeral. And that's already good." Julia sat down on the step. "How to live? How to live now?" Molly sat down next to her, usually to live. Forget everything that happened and start over. Start how? Yeah, Sam won't forgive me. And neither will you. I forgave you a long time ago. I'm grateful in some ways. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have found my father. Julia looked at her in amazement. The new surgeon is your father. Yes, Molly was well aware that tomorrow the whole small town would know about it. But she decided to go with it. They'd find out sooner or later anyway, so let it be sooner so there would be less gossip. Molly turned around. Sam was standing at the door. Julia jumped up. Sam, what are you doing here? He looked at his wife gloomily. What are you doing here? I came to apologize. Sam's voice softened a little. He came in, sat down on the porch. I bought a trip to the sea. In 3 days, we'll go as a family. Julia froze. Molly smiled. She had underestimated Sam. He appeared to have hurt her. Sam at sea altogether. They walked tightly holding hands. Molly sat still for a long time, looking up at the sky and smiling. 3 days later, the village was shaken by the news Leo Alkex failed Chagall. While in the hospital, there was nothing to do. Asked his wife to bring from home something he had left from art, and all days long he painted. When the picture was ready, it was seen by one of the patients, who immediately offered Leo to write more paintings for a real exhibition. Leo, telling everyone, said that he no longer drank because great things awaited him. Jacob, you have a visitor. Is the visitor not a patient? No, he doesn't look like a patient. But let him come into the office. Martin came in. He didn't look as great as he did in the cafe. Jacob immediately pressed his lips together, stood up, then obliged. Martin looked at him, and I came to you for help. I really need your help. What makes you think I'm going to help you? Because I don't know why. Maybe because you broke up with Molly's mother for some reason. Jacob, I don't know why the exchange of belligerent fervor went away. Have a seat now that you're here. I'm listening to Martin. I couldn't start for a long time. Then he started talking. He spoke without any emotion, just laying out one by one the facts he had learned from his mother. By the end of the story, Jacob understood perfectly well that in front of him sat the same victim of deception as he himself had once become. Martin, even if I agree to help you, there is no guarantee that Molly will forgive you. You realize she's out on the street with no money, no place to live, pregnant. Martin looked up at Jacob. I mean, I'm right, Zach. My son is yours, of course. Who else would it be? Help me. Just one thing. I need Molly to listen to me. Molly stuffed and dialed the windows. The door slammed and she turned around and froze. It was her father, and behind him stood Martin. What the hell? What was he doing here? Jacob raised his hand. Molly, we haven't been in contact with you that long, of course. But you know I don't want to hurt you. I'm just asking you to listen to Martin. Then, after you've listened, you can chase him away, even beat him up. Do you think he has something interesting to say, another incredible story to tell? Or are moms more inclined to tell stories? Martin sullenly remained silent. Then Molly looked at her watch. You have exactly 10 minutes, and that's only because Daddy asked. Jacob stepped out so he wouldn't interrupt the conversation. He was sure that Molly still loved that loner. Except her pride. Half an hour had passed. The house was quiet, and Jacob decided to return. He opened the door and froze. Molly and Martin were standing in the middle of the room, hugging, when they both heard Jacob. Then from Zero and from each other, Jacob laughed. I see our family is getting bigger and bigger. Molly smiled embarrassedly at Dad. What a fool I was. It turns out that Martin is shaking his head stubbornly. No, the biggest fool in this situation is me. Jacob didn't have time to answer anything because his phone rang. It was Andrew. Jacob, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine. Why the mysterious voice? Are they packing their bags? Peter has been dishonorably banished. Is your rightful place waiting for you? Jacob exhaled, that's news, but no muse. But you're an excellent surgeon and neighborhood hospitals are not enough for your scale. Jacob hung up the phone, confused, turned to Molly. Here is back Molly, smiled and hugged him. Daddy, it's good your place in a real hospital. especially since we've decided to go back too. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Duck, I guess you two should get married. Martin and Molly laughed. Papa, neither of us ever bothered to get a divorce. Many people came to see off the surgeon and Martin and Zach. Even Lucy came, though she didn't come close to everyone. She stood aside. Colleagues arranged Jacob's fancy send-off, and today he even has a little headache. Molly saw what was sneaking up on her. Julia is tanned and beautiful. Molly, can I give you a hug? I never realized what an attentive and loving husband I have. Thank you. A car stopped at the gate, and no one got out for a long time. Martin looked at it anxiously. Finally, the door opened and Lisa came into the light. Martin jerked toward her, but Molly held him back. The woman didn't look her best. She leaned against the car and stood like that. Molly approached her. Are you all right? Lisa looked at her and cried. Can you forgive me for being such a fool? When I found out I had a grandson, it turned me upside down. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Molly stared into Lisa's eyes for a long time, trying to find a single drop of deceit, but she couldn't. She smiled afterward. I guess I'll have to forgive you. We're family. Anyone can make a mistake. Martin breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what his mom had done, she was still his mom. And he couldn't turn his back on her anyway. And it would be very hard to choose between Molly and his mom. Martin picked Zach up in his arms and said, Shall we go meet Grandma? Zach's eyes rounded in surprise. And then there are relatives. There are so many. Martin laughed. It happens. And we're also hoping that Mommy will give you a brother or sister. As soon as possible.